world gone insane. An upside-down civilization that cannot be real. A world of madness and terror.
It's the Dana Gould Hour.
This episode is brought to you by Harry's Shaving Kits. Please visit harrys.com and use promo code DANA for $5 off your first purchase. I am finally here, recording the intro to this episode. One of my favorite novels from last year was Stephen King's 11/22/63, in which a man went back in time and tried to kill Lee Harvey Oswald before he managed to kill President Kennedy. Yet an interesting thing happened to him in the novel. Every time he tried to do something that would change the course of history, it seemed that history arrayed forces to stop him. He would break his ankle. He would get sick. His gun would jam. He would get in a car accident. He would get in a bus accident. It was so difficult for him to, like a salmon swimming upstream, affect the course of history. Something tells me that history did not want this episode of the show to be completed. Every single thing to stop, impede, or slow this thing down has occurred. Illness, injury, travel, be that as it may, we are here. And I am telling you, it is worth the wait. So I'm not going to belabor it. Very quickly, let's get a little business out of the way. If you're in LA on May 15th, why not come down to Meltdown on Sunset Boulevard and see Arden Marine and I in our monthly show, The Tinkle Twins. You can get tickets at nerdmeltla.com. As for touring dates, in July, on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I'll be at the Comedy Works in Denver. I'm going to be in Boston in August. In September, I'm going back to the Laughing Skull in Atlanta. And in October, I'm going to the Comedy Gallery in Minneapolis. All sorts of deliciousness. But let's get to the show. Today's show combines 3 different records. We have a live show from the San Francisco Sketch Fest featuring Sara Benincasa and Stephen Tobolowski. You can follow Sara on Twitter at Sara J. Benincasa. SarajBenincasa. You can also follow Stephen Tobolowski, the Notice actor. You remember him from Groundhog Day. He can be followed on the Twitter at Tobolowski, TOBOLOWSKY. He's also has a Kickstarter going for a performance film called The Primary Instinct, and I highly recommend you take part in that. That is something I would like to see. Stephen is a master storyteller, as this show will prove. I am also presenting a separate private interview with Sara from our Studio City studio to correct some of the aforementioned technical headaches that beset this show. We are also joined in a separate interview by John Ennis. He, a close friend of Robbie Sullivan and someone I've been wanting to have on the show for a long, long time, one of my original comedy heroes from the lovely and talented city of Boston, Massachusetts, Barry Crimmins. He is a comedy legend. If you know anything about the East Coast comedy scene in the 80s, Barry is one of the people that started it. But right now, I say we just do the show. Starting now. No, now. My first guest today is a very, very, very good friend of Robbie Sullivan. Please welcome from Boston, Massachusetts, John Ennis.
Really nice to be here, Dana. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
What well-rounded vowels.
I'm trying my best to be articulate.
And someone that I first met when I lived in Boston, and something of, I dare one say, legend in comedy circles. Bob Goldthwait is producing and directing a documentary about our next guest. Please welcome also one of the guiding creative lights of Air America, for those of you old enough to remember it.
Oh,
Barry Crimmins is here.
well, thanks for that.
I can cut that up.
He was right behind one of the gigantic failures in broadcast history.
Please welcome from the Grand Ole Opry. Now, you were saying that because you've done a lot of other work outside of stand-up, and sometimes that when you do comedy, you'll get a very sonorous...
Exactly.
Very
good word.
And then you have to go on and be funny Right. Comedy is such a.
It would be. I get these introductions where you feel like the audience is thinking, well, it would be disrespectful to laugh at this man.
Yeah. And it was like, it's sort of like the introduction of Lenny Bruce on the Lenny Bruce at Carnegie Hall album, where Lenny holds up a mirror to society. Right. It's like, please don't. Please don't. You're killing it. You're killing it.
Yeah.
Comedy is one of those things that it lives in its own little world, and even the serious shit you can't take seriously.
Right.
Or that's the fine line that Jon Stewart has to walk. He'll do everything, and then he'll go, well, it's just a comedy show.
Yeah. Like, I never do that. I never take it's a comedy show. I fucking meant that. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. You know? Yes. Yeah. That was always what I liked about...
I was kidding, but I'm not kidding.
Yes, that's the best way to say it. I was kidding, but I'm not kidding. Yeah. That was what I always liked about George Carlin. He was like, well, that's just what I mean.
Yeah, right.
And I was thinking about that. When I first met you, it was Ronald Reagan's re-election, and you were handing out Mondale pins. And it's so funny to look back on that now, where no one realizes that people didn't like Reagan.
Right. Tear down that wall. I want to visit the rest of the SS graves. Tear it down.
It must be so weird to see
what an abject failure I was of convincing anybody in those things.
I wouldn't take it personally. I know. But to just see history just kind of bulldoze over and go like, no, he was great.
Oh man, it's brutal. I mean, he was awful and
disastrous.
Yeah.
In many
ways.
The
damage just continues.
Yeah, and people don't realize there weren't always people begging for change at the off-ramp of every highway.
Yeah.
There was a time when those people had a place to go.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was one of the evil things the Reagan administration did was they emptied out all the mental hospitals into the homeless population.
Right.
Now, if you're trying to help a homeless person, you don't know if they're hallucinating, if they're this. I mean, it really worked.
Yes.
I had a friend try to help some poor person who clearly having trouble on the street corner in New York, and he's belonged he belonged under care somewhere, and he slashed my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, because he thought she was a lizard.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. A condor.
Yeah.
I was thinking of FDR. They don't talk about the boatload of Jews he sent back to Europe, and they don't talk about the Japanese internment. They just talk about the New Deal and winning World War II.
Somoza.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that you just
son of a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just sort of things that you just go by.
He saved,
Yes.
he saved capitalism.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
it's getting late. We're in late stage capitalism now because they're running out of people to screw, which is why we're starting to feel it in Santa Monica a little bit. I used to make $300,000 a year on this thing they're profiteering on. Now they pick me up as a part-time, and I'm lucky if I get 80.
Right. That is true.
That's not a living. Well, they've run out of people to screw over.
That is really so
true.
And
that's it's late stage.
Well, even the cover of The Economist this week is about American inequality, and The Economist is all for inequality.
Oh, I know.
And it is one of those things. I
haven't seen it yet.
I've seen the cover of the Rolling Stone, right?
Oh yeah, we have the Pope on the cover.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would have been.
Keep getting richer, but I can't get. Oh, actually, I can.
I would have assumed it was Justin Bieber, and that I originally thought that's what you meant by the Pope.
He also has a cool hat.
No, we mean the guy that everyone thinks they're supposed to like now because he spoke out against capitalism, but every Pope does because they think wealth should be concentrated in one place, and they're involved.
Yes, exactly. The Vatican.
And if he really cared about the poor people he's supposedly telling us to take care of, he would open the vault and sell a couple of fucking chalices, and that would be that. But he would also open a couple other things like those diplomatic pouches full of all the evidence about all the abuse cases that went to Ratzinger, who then became Pope somehow.
Exactly.
Well, I've been able to keep a lid on this thing, but I don't know. When the new guy gets in, I don't know what we're going to be able to do. But then they even had to get rid of him, and he lost the Pope mobile, so he only travels by extradition. So, this guy's PR man is a former Fox flack. I think his name's Burke, but I'm not sure. Former Fox News flack. I mean, he wasn't even an on-air guy. He was he was the guy that could ooze into cracks that they couldn't get through. So he's the PR guy. He's also a member of Opus Dei. My favorite band, Opus Dei. Opus Dei and the Nights. Yeah, that's with a K.
For those uninitiated,
a little bit softer now. Shh. A little bit shh.
For those of the uninitiated, no pun intended, illuminate people about Opus Dei.
Oh, it's just this nutty. I mean, it's this organization that dates back to the.
Is it the Freemasons or?
No. Opus Dei is the Catholic, nutty, secret, high up.
Right.
Danger.
It's the Catholic Freemasons.
Yeah, basically. And
right. That's what I meant. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's a little, they've got them tweeting every day, the Pope's on Twitter. So I tweet the Pope every day and demand excommunication, because that's I do. I mean, I know it sounds like a gag. I mean, it is kind of funny, but I mean, really, their big threat is we are banishing you to hell. Well, go ahead,
right?
Go ahead. I'm not afraid. An organization like that, if there is something happening after this, because I'm a lapsed agnostic, I don't get into, I don't like evangelism.
Evangelism, yeah.
Evangelism. Even if atheists are doing it,
yes, I'm against fundamentalist atheism as much as I am against fundamentalist Christianity.
I mean,
well, it's basically you're a fool. You think you know what happens after you die. Right. I know what happens after you die.
Without making us fear death, they have no power over us.
Well, exactly. So I mean, but here's the thing: I've been to a few funerals in the last several years where my friends who didn't have any use for that church at all got dragged back into it. And then this guy gets up, and says, I didn't know, John, but that won't stop me from talking for the next 54 minutes, saying things that L. Ron Hubbard would feel was too far-fetched to try to palm off on anybody. And, where they're like, can we tell some drinking stories or something? Like, Jesus Christ. So, I don't want that to happen to my friends. So among other things, if I'm formally excommunicated, then even they'll keep me out rather than
you have to
bring me in to torture my. Not that I think I have everything arranged where that's not going to happen, but I don't want it to happen. But mainly, publicly tweeting the Pope and demanding it every day is meant to show people that I'm taking their trump card and burning it. You do not scare me. You don't have moral authority, because I know what you've done and I know what you've been doing. I deal with people who've been victimized by that church all the time. I know what goes on in these hearings and these depositions. I know that they send people to these awful quote-unquote therapists that the church wants you to see, where they basically re-victimize people. It just goes on and on. And then when they come to a settlement, then they start declaring fake bankruptcies. Like the Catholic Church is bankrupt, right?
Right.
Yeah. The Catholic Church,
the most wealthy and tax-free organization.
Yeah. The Catholic, well, of course they're tax-free. They got to be their own country because Mussolini made them a country. And here comes the diplomatic pouches with the evidence from all this abuse cases, and it's all over there. If you want to be open,
so the evidence is in a diplomatic pouch, so nobody can access it.
They stick it in a pouch, bang, it's out of the country.
Right, and nobody can, and then nobody has the right to access it.
Right, exactly. So
they're so smart. Thank you very much for coming to one of our live shows. Our first guest, he is a very well-noted actor. You will absolutely remember him from many of his roles, including a pivotal role in one of the best comedies ever made, Groundhog Day. He also is in a new series that premieres on Comedy Central this summer and called, I believe, Big Times in Hollywood, Florida. Please welcome Stephen Tobolowski, ladies and gentlemen. In addition to Steve, there's a really, really funny young comedian and somebody of whom I am a very big fan. And she's also an author, a published author, really made a book. A chapter book. The creative force behind Tub Talk with Sara B. Please welcome Sara Benincasa, ladies and gentlemen. one of the things that I thought was very interesting about you, too, is that as I went over your stuff, you have really nothing in common at all, outside of being carbon-based. But what I wanted to do was to take a common theme and something that was universal. What are your real fears when you boil it down? And who knows fear more than an agoraphobic Sara Benincasa? Go.
It's true. I wrote a book called Agoraphobia, which I'm adapting right now into a pilot. And
one set. You're already saving money. You were, for a while, agoraphobic.
Absolutely. Yeah, still am. I just take so much Prozac.
Really?
So, I'm like 75% Prozac and like 25% titty. Like, that's pretty much the makeup of my body. Everything but this is just like sweet serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Yeah, I take that. I take a drug called Abilify, and that helps a lot. Therapy helps a lot. So agoraphobia is a fear of basically travel, of being outside, whatever your
I'm sorry,
safe spot is.
25% titty.
25% titty.
It's fear of travel.
It's fear of travel. It's fear of being outside the home. So yeah, and I still deal with it, but it's pretty well managed these days. I made it here, which is exciting, all the way from Burbank. Can you believe it?
Burbank, or as I call it, God's country. But do you extrapolate your fear? Is your fear of being outside, or no, then I'm going to go outside and X will happen?
I think it's a fear of having a panic attack. Does anybody else have panic attacks ever? Oh, Dana raises his hand, as do many.
I'm still figuring out that podcasts aren't video.
Neurotic San Francisco. I'm illustrating it for everyone. So I'm not the only one in the room or in the listening audience.
So this is where it becomes
it's a fear of fear, basically.
Exactly. It's the snake.
Fear of fear.
It's the snake that eats its tail, and because you are afraid that you are going to have a panic attack.
Exactly.
Which is in itself a reaction to fear.
I'm afraid I'm going to humiliate myself by going on a podcast and awkwardly talking about my tits and Prozac. No, I'm afraid that I'm going to humiliate myself. That because sometimes I get afraid of situations in which I'm not in control, like being at the grocery store. As a boring example, but a real example. I'm afraid that somehow I'll have a panic attack and people will notice and they'll find out that I'm fucked up, and because that's a crazy thing, right?
Right.
And so at a certain point in time, when I was younger, I didn't even leave my house. When I was 21, I had to get some pretty extensive therapy and drop out of college. And I went to school in Emerson College in Boston. I dropped out and moved home. And so it's a fear of fear. Yeah, that's really what it is, and thank God it's under control right now.
With heavy
medication. Not supposed to be drinking. Having a Black Russian, by the way, provided to me by Stephanie here at Eureka Theater in San Francisco.
What would a Black Russian sound like?
I'm not touching it.
Workers of the world unite. Thank you. I'll cut that. I'm going to cut that. Does this ring a bell with you at all, or are you utterly fearless?
No, I'm thinking about what you said is so true is that life doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out, and you begin by thinking you're afraid of certain things, like big people. When you're a little person, you're afraid of big people. You're afraid of monster movies, things like that. And then you're afraid, most people are afraid of dying. That's a big one. They're afraid of dying. I had the kind of, in a way, good fortune to almost, to be killed a few times.
Right.
Really?
I was held hostage at gunpoint in a grocery store. I was thrown off of a horse on the side of a mountain in Iceland and broke my neck in 5 places. And the doctor told me that I had a fatal injury, which is a terrible thing for a doctor to tell a living patient.
No.
That's just a doctor giving up at that point.
He wasn't also holding you hostage in a grocery store.
And then I had open heart surgery, and that's a whole other story. And then I realized, well, I wasn't too afraid of death. But what I realized that I was afraid of is what you were saying is that it keeps changing, it keeps morphing, and I realize what I am afraid of is nothing. And I don't mean that I'm fearless. I mean that I am afraid of that thing that we call nothing.
The absence of
the
existence.
absence of something. I'm afraid of not having an idea. I'm afraid of not having a job or having this moment where there's just blacks. When I went camping once,
I'm with you.
Wow, I was
Canyon.
so enthralled by being held hostage in a grocery store.
Yeah.
And then you caromed into camping.
Some friends of ours were saying, well, let's go walk. And
I was at a gangbang, and I looked up at the TV, and one of the black and white Gilligan's Islands was on that I completely forgot about.
No, it wasn't.
You were at a what bang?
No. We went to look at a deserted lead mine, and they had all these signs up saying like warning.
Can I just do my impression of you deciding to leave on the trip? All right, kids, you've been bugging me for months. We're going to the deserted lead mine. We wanted to go to the well-populated lead mine. Well, we're going to the deserted lead mine. The only car that will be there is us and the mystery van.
I went up with a bunch of my hippie friends.
Okay.
No children involved. And we're walking into this lead mine with all the signs saying warning lead mine. And I walked in, and for some reason, I just stopped and thought it was a good time to turn on my flashlight. And I turned it on, and I saw I was on the edge of nothing. I was standing like I would be here, and this drop here was about a quarter of a mile down.
Oh my God.
And I'm just there, and I thought, well, let me try out my echo, see how it is. Hello? And it was a dead zone. I thought, well, that's weird. I thought it would be a little more echoey, and I turned on my light and saw, oh my God, it was a quarter of a mile down. And that is the nothing I'm afraid of. Uh-huh. Whether it's real or figurative, I don't like that nothing, whatever it may be.
Are you
Is
just...
he right?
Well, I'm
It would be
curious.
great if you said no.
No, I think he's totally right. But I'm also
Fuck
curious,
that.
is it...
I'm afraid of disembodied donkey jaws.
Is it also the absence of activity in your life? Like if you're between jobs, say, which occasionally I've heard happens to actors, even successful ones like yourself. If you're between jobs and between auditions, do you start to get antsy?
Not really, because I got cats. So,
And a giant mouse suit. So there's never any lack of fun around the Tobolowski house. It was raining in LA 2004, where we just had a ginormous rainstorm. Power went out, and literally our road was a river. And I was walking up, it was dark, and I was walking up the street to check on our neighbor who was pregnant. And we wanted to make sure she was okay. And as I'm walking up the street, I see just in moonlight that there's a tree down. And then I look and I went, oh, thigh deep in water. This tree has a power line attached to it. So, and I was literally like right in front of it. So I backed out. Fuck the neighbor. Hope they're not dead. Went back into the house, and when the power company came out, I walked down close to the road, and I guy's sitting in the truck, and I go, "Can I ask you a question?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "I was out in this road about an hour ago, And he goes, yeah? And I said, was I in physical danger? And he said, have you noticed I'm sitting in the truck? You do have those weird moments, and you just shake them off. You know the Seth MacFarlane story.
Yeah, about 9/11.
Yeah, he was on one of the planes.
Oh,
that was
right.
supposed to go into 9/11. Supposed to go into 9/11.
Right.
It's a store. It's got cute clothes and sadness.
I feel so that telling that story was my 9/11. You know, that's an expression now. That was. Have you heard it?
Yes.
Yes, I crashed. No, that was my 9/11. It's true. I shit my pants at the wedding reception. It was my 9/11. And the people who are actually a part of 9/11, that's their 9/11. They should get a bonus 9/11. Just to be like the rest of us. But
I like to describe things on occasion as 9/11-y, like
9/11
really bad
9/11-y,
things. Like, that was
9/11-ish.
so 9/11-y. The audience hates me, and that's fine.
yeah,
It's not 9/11-y.
yeah.
I fucking love it. Bring it. Bring your rage.
I'll never see a hijacked plane fly into two buildings again and not think of 9/11. But that's me, and I'm a student of history. But he was supposed to be on one of the planes, and I asked him, I said, like, do you ever, and just a fluke of luck, didn't, the big Waylon Jennings.
Really?
Traded his plane seat with Buddy Holly.
Wow.
Yeah, and you're just like, what do? Do you just wake up every day going, ah. I had a panic attack on stage.
You did?
At Cobb's Comedy Club. This was back when they would do 3 shows on a Saturday night, and my heart starts racing, and I have like another 40 minutes.
Jesus.
And then I have to do 2 more hour-long shows. And I just thought, I can't be here. And I just walked off. And walked out of the show. I said, like, I'll be right back. I'll never do this again, by the way. If you come to a show, I'm going to be there the whole time. But I walked off stage, and the club owner is the guy whose real name, oddly enough, is Tom Sawyer. He said, who's on stage right now? And I went, no one. And I just went in the men's room and stood in the stall for a few minutes and just kind of
Yeah, you kind of got yourself together.
Yeah, and then I went back and I white-knuckled it through the night, but then I had stage fright for about 2 years. Because you can be on your deathbed and you go on stage and you're fine again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And once that is pierced, like that vulnerability is pierced, it was bleh. I didn't start taking medication for it for years later, which was a giant mistake.
Well, a lot of comedians deal with, and actors deal with a great deal of anxiety, but they deal with it with, Black Russians
Right.
and various other substances. And I actually, coming out here, I had a moment where I was like, should I bring my purse? Because I haven't had a panic attack in a while, knock on whatever the fuck this is made of. And the tears of children.
Yeah. I am fascinated by the concept of agoraphobia because I think I had a little touch of it.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a spectrum. It's a scale. You know, it's not like you are or you aren't.
Yeah.
You can have a little bit of it.
If full blown agoraphobia,
Full blownsies.
right? We call it full blownsies. I had a kiss of it.
Okay. What?
Were you to make the AIDS analogy?
Yeah.
Instead of having full blown AIDS, I had a kiss of AIDS.
You had a touch.
Scandalous.
Just a wee tiny touch.
Scandalous, the faintest whiff of AIDS.
Just a delightful little slight amount. My friend Jensen Karp called it. I used to have his Twitter bio used to be like, if you're not the type of person who's cool with me calling it full blownsies, we're not going to be friends.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I was instantly like, we're going to be friends.
We when I was at The Simpsons, we were there was an obsession with how that became a full-blown AIDS.
Yeah.
And we began to wonder, like, when a diagnosis came in, it's AIDS, if the patient ever said, how blown is it?
It's fully fucking blown.
Fully blown.
So getting back to the topic at hand, it happens a lot with agoraphobics. The way it starts is that you have either a traumatic experience somewhere out of your home, presumably, or you have a panic attack, which can also be a traumatic experience. And for me, it was having panic attacks over the course of many years outside of the home and realizing I never seemed to have them at home. So in my head, that meant that everywhere else was unsafe.
Okay.
And the home was safe. And of course,
And how old are you at this point of this realization?
I was 20. I went to Emerson College in Boston.
Very familiar with it.
I lived on Newbury Street above a Persian Italian restaurant. It was an Italian.
Well, there's no joke there.
It was a time when I had begun to feel that the outside world was very scary, and I was better off staying inside. And then when 9/11 happened, everybody in Boston, of course, was totally fucking freaked out, like everybody else was. But Boston, one of the planes came from there, so they had an additional, like, real world reason to be freaked out.
Yeah, and they started out of Logan, and and people don't realize that in Boston, it was even more 9/11-y than other cities.
It was super 9/11s. It was like, if you couldn't be in New York, you wanted to be in Boston to have that experience.
If you wanted to maximize your 9/11 potential.
I mean, New York, let's be honest, was peak 9/11.
Sure.
They have it. But Boston, as always, second best.
Yeah.
In so many ways. So
always the bridesmaid, never the
Exactly
bride. That was the headline the next day.
I remember walking down the street, and right across from the
most laugh-filled
BPL,
conversation about 9/11 ever, by the way.
People are listening, just like, these people are terrible. I was right by the Boston Public Library, and I looked. I saw this window of this office, and they had put up this sign that said, "We love New York." And I remember that struck me, and I just started crying. It was September 12th, and that struck me because I was just like, that never happens ever. Ever in Boston. So seeing that, I was like, oh, this is some real shit. Like, at 20 years old, I was like, oh. But what happened was that seemed to confirm my insane fears.
In San Francisco on September 12th, they were putting up signs that said, "We still hate L.A." But L.A. is wholly unaware of it.
L.A. doesn't care.
Yeah, no, it is funny. We're living in San Francisco, like, oh, L.A. is so fucking horrible. And people in L.A. are like, oh, San Francisco's cute. We're going to go up there.
It's cute. We're going to go for a weekend and, like, go get some Chinese food and, go to City Lights books, because I read a book once and I heard that that's a fun place to read books, too. And people in San Francisco are like, fuck you.
Yeah. Oh, don't you know you're our enemy?
They're so smart. They're so smart in San Francisco. So many, like, brilliant, such educated people. Like, everybody, you walk down the street and, like, hobos are reading Sartre, and you're just, I'm like, drinking a Starbucks.
San Francisco has the coolest homeless population.
Very aggressive, in your face, but very chatty, talkative.
They also have to work harder. Like, in L.A., you'd find, like, a homeless guy living out of a box with a long, dirty, wet beard. But in San Francisco, you'd have a homeless guy living out of a box with a long, dirty, wet beard wearing a wizard's hat.
Exactly.
They go the extra step.
I talked to I saw somebody tweeted, it might have been my friend Elon James White, who lives there, and he does a show called This Week in Blackness. It might have been him.
I don't think there's anybody in San Francisco named Elon.
Well, he does live in Oakland, I think. No, he lives in Berkeley. And
the People's Republic of Berkeley.
The People's Republic of Berkeley. But I think it was him. I'm not positive. Maybe it was me. Some comic tweeted that they were walking down the street. They passed, in the space of 5 minutes, 2 different homeless people really reading books, just really into it, like really in depth, with a cup out, but like very focused on their novels. And I was like, that's San Francisco to me. Just like this incredible disparity between classes, but this unifying factor of like great, incredibly intelligent people, nerds.
I'm walking down Polk Street, which is aptly named if you look at the bars that are on Polk Street. I'll just say there's a bar there called the White Swallow, and although there's a picture of a bird, I don't think they really mean it's about birds. And there's a really messed up, the guy wasn't homeless. I mean, he was a drug addict, wino, whatever. Can you still be a wino? He was a stew bum. He was a stew bum. All the stew bums showing up like bounce checks. Tom Waits. And
Thank you.
so he's lying on the sidewalk, passed out cold on his back. And I immediately think, oh, this poor motherfucker may vomit.
And choke.
And asphyxiate.
Right.
So this is about 10 o'clock in the morning. I was leaving, doing radio show, which explains why I was on Polk Street at 10 o'clock in the morning. I start to roll him over because he's kind of against the wall, and I'm trying to roll him over so he's facing down, leaning against the wall. And I get him almost at the apex of the roll where his body weight will then take him further. The fulcrum of his own body mass will then take him up against the wall. And he'll, if he gets sick, he'll not choke on it.
That's very sweet of you.
As I do this, he blindly reaches out, grabs my junk, and begins to wrench it as if trying to pull it from my body.
Oh my God.
So I begin to kick him
It turns into a hate crime.
between the shoulder blades, which is where my foot is right now. And if anyone were to round the corner, they would see me kicking a homeless man in the back of the neck while he tries to pull my balls off.
Or he was giving you a very aggressive but proactive hand job.
Yeah, he was giving me what we like to call full-blown reach around. But it was literally like I'm kicking that motherfucker, you fucking savagely kicking him in the neck.
Dana Gould committing a hate crime
really
on
true.
the streets of San Francisco.
Stomping him like the guy in American History X.
Oh, yeah, that is crazy. But you've reformed, much like Edward Norton. You don't kick homeless people. You don't beat the shit out of them anymore.
Reformed.
You've reformed.
Really
you have a very nice life now.
That's San Francisco.
You're a better person.
Yeah. No good deed. I know one person in particular who was a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
Left the priesthood. Mm-hmm. Came out of the closet.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, and he and his partner now run an AIDS hospice in Massachusetts.
Great.
My second cousin. Is part of this that people with sexual issues join the priesthood because they think that is the only thing that will cure their whatever it is they have, even if it's something that doesn't need to be, quote, cured. Right. Even if, like, they're gay, but they feel shame that they're gay because they were raised in a very Christian household.
Or how about this? You're gay and you're attracted to a place with like 9 million men in it, and it's the patriarchal thing. It's
not a lot of light bulbs.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, I wouldn't even go so far as to posit a guess, because I don't. I have nothing against those people, except I think the church has used its homophobia to silence those guys about what they know is going on.
Right.
Because from what I've looked into, you really have to be on another planet if you were in that church to not know about the abuse of children that was taking place.
Right.
So, and I think they used the homophobia to silence a lot of people because we equated it forever. It was, pedophilia, homophobia, pick one.
You were talking the other day about the word admit.
Oh, yeah. Well, they always say, you often see things where like, well, ever since he admitted he was abused as a child, and it's like, you don't admit, you disclose. You don't admit you were hit by a hit-and-run driver or, held up at gunpoint. But he admitted, it took a lot of guts. And I've had people, because I'm a child abuse survivor, I've had people say, you have so much guts to admit what happened to you. And it's like, I'm disclosing because contemporary children are in danger.
You think in language, and the language that you use will steer your thoughts.
Twain said, use the right word, not its second cousin.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And that's why they have people in political races that are paid a lot of money to choose the right language to soften things.
Right. Fuzz it up.
Right. In the way that.
Well, I mean, I'm at the point when I've done so much electoral stuff over the years, but I'm at the point now where painters used to get this thing called the painter's colic. There was lead in the paint. They would paint every day for years, and then one day they open up a can of paint. It's just like, oh, and they just start puking.
Really?
Yeah. And that's how I feel about elections.
Yeah. Well,
I have the electoral colic,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, as I've said, the problem with this election is someone's going to win.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. Is it just what do we want for the next 4 years? The duck with salt or the duck with pepper?
Right,
Is it like an S&P shaker?
Yeah. No.
The great political S&P shaker argument that I've been making for years now.
It's pick a party, the dogs or the ponies.
Yeah.
Basically, and then get real self-righteous about. Either or leads to a lot of hypocrisy, and plus it just plays into this sort of sports thing in America where I've got to win. I
agree completely, and that is the problem. I think. Well, this is a wart on the nose of the witch. That is the problem, but. The sports game that is Fox versus MSNBC.
Yeah.
And it's just who's going to win the news cycle today, and they really don't even care about it.
But the actual contest is who blows more.
Right. Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
I agree completely. I can't watch either one of them, although I do watch Chris Matthews because
I understand this.
Yes. As Mike Murphy said, I'm waiting for him to unbutton his jacket and reveal the vest of dynamite he's clearly wearing.
Yeah. But just the stuff when he says, he's one of those guys who really tips you off because everyone says that we're supposed to be we need more bipartisanship. As if we took the average of these shitheads, it would be okay. I'm taking the average of dung and manure, and I'm standing on, raked it into a pile, and now it's the moral high ground because I'm the average of these two varieties of shithead.
Yes.
No, it's not. I mean, we don't have a third party because corporations don't want to write a third check. And I'm tired of this either or. Either or is a bad choice, and it takes up all our time. And all these people think they're politically active, and they spend their life in servitude to these people who, by the way, want to be in charge. And I don't ever trust anyone who wants to be in charge.
Right.
That guy, we see that guy and what he's done. Let's get him to be, or her to be in charge. Let's get that. Yeah.
Right.
That's who you want to be in charge. Someone who's already sort of in charge, but not desirous of
power, right?
Yeah.
There's they want to be in charge for a reason, and it's usually psychological.
Yeah, right,
and never in a good way.
Right. And at that point, and about 5 years later, you realize, so I'm actually dealing with an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a photo, Nixon and Johnson in the one of the big rooms in the White House talking to each other, and it was after the 68 election, but before he was sworn in.
Right.
And there's two men, both of them certifiably insane.
Yeah.
Who ran the country for 8 years between them. Not ironically, maybe the most tumultuous 8 to 10 years of the latter half of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Due in large part to their psychological demons wrought writ large because of their own tortured psyches.
I was telling John the famous LBJ story, but he's running for Senate, I guess, in Texas. And he tells his campaign manager, put the word out that my opponent fucks dogs. and the guy says, I can't do that. He doesn't fuck dogs. Like, I know he doesn't fuck dogs. I just want to hear him deny it.
That's how it, landslide Lyndon. Both of them said during the height of the Vietnam War, I'm not going to be the first American president to lose a war.
Right.
And then in Stephen Ambrose's biography of Nixon, he said, well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're not going to win the war, the smart guy is the guy that admits defeat.
Being the first president who admits a war is stupid and useless, and we should get out and stop doing the damage. You know, I would want him to go further than be the first American president who apologizes for a war. The problem with this country is would rather create veterans than care for them. You know, and I think all recruiting for the military should be done on the top floor of veterans hospitals, and every kid should have to walk through the whole hospital, see what kind of glamour awaits them, you know, before they sign up.
Well, what you said is really true, and economic conscription is something that people don't realize, that the only people that are fighting these wars are the people that can't afford not to.
Right. Or are paying off college.
Right.
You know, I mean, whatever. In some way, though, you're hooked in. You have to do this. You have to go. And everyone talks about, you know, their freedom, you know, like, well, they're over there defending our freedom. My freedom is nowhere near Afghanistan. It's here. And if I want my freedom to remain viable, I use it to say, please don't send those kids to Afghanistan to be, you know, get killed, or worse, become killers.
Well, I have found in political arguments of any stripe, you know your opponent is out of ideas when they start to hit the freedom button.
Yeah.
You know, all those people who lost their homes in the banking crisis lost it because they were in search of freedom.
Right.
It was all freedom from debt.
Right.
Use your home as collateral for a loan that we will give you so you can pay off all of your debt. And there was the commercial of the husband and wife signing the papers while their kids slept upstairs, now that their mom and dad don't own the home anymore. A bank owns the home.
Right.
The worst thing that happens if you don't pay your JCPenney bill is JCPenney gets mad at you.
Right.
But now the worst thing that happens if you don't pay off the bank that owns your house because you sold it to pay JCPenney.
Right.
Now you're living in a box.
That's right.
And all of those people were they're always buying freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
freedom from living in buildings.
Yeah. And people don't realize that. And I come from a family where a lot of people went in the army because there was nothing else to do.
Right. It's not the quality of a person's content that matters. It's the size of the flag they stand in front of. Yeah. And you know how I feel. I have a flag-burning stove at my house. Excellent source of alternative energy. Plentiful, abundant. You know, it's cold tonight. Let's get one from a car dealership. So, yeah, I mean, it's... You know, often in my work over the years, people have tried to give me this out. But really, you do what you do because you're patriotic. And I go, look, you can accuse me of all sorts of fucked up things, and I'll cop to it. But I'm patriotism. Twain basically said comes naturally, like breathing. There's no personal merit in breathing. You know, I like where I'm from. I like the people where I'm from. I know them. I like the land near me that I've known my whole. Wow, you are special. Wow, and you know we have a whole country of people who are just like that. Yeah. Yes, we do. Wow. You know, that's not going on anywhere else. Like people are walking around looking at some beautiful view in, you know, Chechnya somewhere going like, if I were only in the United States.
I mean, I vote, but my expectations are profoundly low.
Howard Zinn said that on election day we should take the 3 minutes it takes to go in and vote and try to do the least amount of damage we can, and then come out and hold whoever wins. You hold their feet to the fire and you go after them, and you go back to doing the real political acts, which are in many. You know, there are a million different things. There are little acts of resistance. You know, comply with this. You do comply with that. You take positive action. Whatever it is. But you're better cleaning up litter than you are, you know, handing it out. And
That's well put.
I better write that down. I just thinks of that one, my own self, personally. Actually, not.
I have very little patience for people whose entire worldview is shaped by their political ideology, which is the left or the right.
I mean, but you can't even say left in this country. There's no
the American left.
I mean, the spectrum is
right.
If it went any further to the right, they would hold the New Hampshire primary in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You know,
I was looking.
Only in this country could we have health care reform, and it was just a reworking of how the people who created the crisis will benefit from the next boondoggle.
Right.
You know, and that's our health. That's called reform, and everybody says it with a straight face and tie. Reform. You know,
I worked with a filmmaker.
Reform goes and takes away the miscreants who robbed us all, and takes their money away from them and redistributes that. That would be a reform.
The fact that the concept of healthcare being a right, it wasn't bad enough that became an argument.
Yeah.
Now, it's not even an argument.
No.
Right.
No.
You know, it is. It's like,
So we've made a lot of progress. Health depends often the decisions are made, and these people are in a 30-story building. There wasn't one stethoscope in the place, and they're the ones giving the okay, the yay or nay to.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to get the okay from the insurance company, right? You know, so whoever's deciding is in some building that's 30 stories high, and there's a stethoscope in the place.
Gotcha.
And that's who's making the decision.
Yes.
I mean, rather than the doctor saying, we have to do this right now, and I don't
Yes,
care.
yes.
You know, screw these people.
Right. Is it a cost-effective decision?
Yeah. And it's unbelievable how socialized militarism doesn't bother anybody. The Pentagon's so greedy, it has an extra side on its building.
No, and by the way, every one of those people, by the Ayn Rand definition, are takers. They're just living off the government.
Yeah.
Every single Marine.
And I mean, let's not even talk about
I know, it's
her. You know, that's just, I'm not a freshman anymore, but that's shit. Selfishness as in drag as some sort of bizarre national altruism is just, but I mean, that's the whole libertarian thing. I hold plenty in common with some people who call themselves libertarians, but you know, for a government of the, you know, that's for the collective good and not you know, private profit. And I mean, the way we just treat, you know, these profiteers it's who we really worship. It's who we dream.
It's
of becoming.
true. You know, as somebody who has recently bought a house that was flipped,
Yeah.
to now see all these shows that celebrate people who flip houses.
Yeah. Right.
Because it's just like
It's just
they're just it's like
Yeah, right.
they're used car salesmen, but they're house salesmen.
right,
It's
right.
just like they're the
Fully inflated tires.
yeah. It's the house equivalent of rolling back your odometer.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, it really is. and yet we have TV shows. Oh, these guys great. Look what he did.
Yeah.
I definitely know, as just to, you know, to talk about like those shows and things like that. You know, so many. I'm sure it's true that every generation thinks like, oh, it's done.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sure
we're the first one that are right.
Yeah, we definitely are. As my mechanic would say, we're down to the pads.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
down
Yeah,
to
the
the pads.
rotors are going to go.
Yeah. You got no pad left on these things. You're right down the routers.
Yeah. We're here to save the planet, man. No, you're here to save yourself.
Yes, exactly.
The planet's going to be here.
Yeah.
You know, the planet's going to be here, and it'll form something blue and beautiful over wherever we were.
Right.
And we won't be here to see it, but the planet's going to be. We got to save the planet. That's like the boil on the arm saying, you know, we've got to save the arm, man. You know, and the arm's just getting ready to get you lanced.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
The planet's not
they're
worried.
removing the offending organisms.
Will you get to the point? Like, I don't see how this reverses itself.
Well,
know,
I mean, there's scientists that have the numbers that are sort of confirming.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's like it is beyond the pale, and the problem is that the large, you know, this is a small aspect of it. Like the people who denied that it's a problem won't care that they were proven wrong, because they'll already have what they wanted.
They think, you know, you can't compress enough wealth or hoard enough stuff for yourself to make you last much longer than everybody else is
Right.
going to last. And even if you do, you're going to be somewhere horrible.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe you should just think about how much you need. And it's kind of simple stuff, but really, how much do you need?
Well,
this is the time to ask that question.
Well, yeah, and there was and I don't know who this quote is about, but it was really great, and I heard it like a week ago. One wealthy person met another much wealthier person. Mm-hmm. And later said to their friend, they've got a lot, but I have something that they'll never have. I said, what was that? And they said, enough. You know, that a lot of these people, it's just a disease and they just can't stop. Now, there's those people, and then there's your people like James Inhofe who believe like, no, that the earth is a giant sheet cake that God gave us to eat.
Right.
And then when we're down to the pan, he's going to come with another sheet cake.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah. People that do believe that Jesus will appear on a giant white horse.
Well, I mean, how about...
Why would he need a horse if he's that powerful? He's like, I'm not going to run. With my knees?
I mean, the rapture stuff is hilarious. I mean, just sort of like...
It's as crazy as anything in Scientology.
Let me get... You worship a god, and this is the god's plan. He's going to get the Arabs to fight the Jews, and they're going to cause the worst conflagration that ends the earth, and then just you and a select group of people are going to be brought behind the red, velvet rope, and everybody else is going to be left behind screaming in agony, swimming in a sea of like perpetual lava, and that's the God you believe, that's what your God thought up. That was your God's plan, and you worship a fucking asshole who would do a thing like that.
A sociopath.
Come on, yeah. Jesus.
Well, get in
the game.
Even the entire concept of the gospel, where God gave the world His only Son, and then allowed him to die horribly. Mm-hmm. So that the world could live without sin. It's the definition of passive-aggressive.
It's also why the modern day people may allow their children to become altar boys.
They surrender their son.
Oh boy. I had a priest who was, when I was a kid, I had to serve mass every day because no one else was dumb enough to. Well, not that.
I was an altar boy.
I just got sent up there.
We were
every day.
all altar boys.
We were all altar boys.
How are your knees feeling? So,
my tonsils.
Every morning, I would go up there and serve mass with this guy, Father Neri, who looked exactly like Christopher Lee, who was the Dracula of the time, and he's a dead ringer for him. And I would I'd come in the morning, and the light would be coming through the stained glass window in the sacristy, and he'd be cloaked in this crimson light, and just have this malevolent stuff to say to him, because he knew he couldn't abuse me, because I had already been abused, but I didn't realize that's why I was protected. But he started to give me the shoulder rub, and I hit him with an elbow. Yeah, that happened twice, and he tried to get me in his car a few times, and it was like, no. Unfortunately, back in those days, kids were allowed to cut through yards, and it was just like, zoom, goodbye. You can't. So I'm serving mass every day. The pond is empty, so this guy hates me. So every morning on the altar, he just denigrates me. He just denigrates me.
Wow.
Literally, he is going to hell. I'm this like curly-haired, 11-year-old kid being told on an altar every morning that I'm going to hell by this authority, who's like, later it comes out was one of the most savage pedophiles ever, dozens of victims, and I know his victims, and they've told me, this guy used to rape boys. Well, in the meantime, he's got the mother downstairs saying a rosary, and then when he's done, he makes the kid say confession to him, making the kid feel complicit in the crime that was just committed against him. Then he goes down, and on the way out the door, he takes $5 or $10 from the mom for the instruction. Okay, this is the shitbag I had to deal with every morning, and you wonder why I have a problem with authority. But
I don't wonder that.
Yeah. It was, and he just hated me, and he tried to drive me off, but he didn't know that I wasn't about to go tell my parents I couldn't cut it as an altar boy, so I just served mass every day. So finally one day, this guy, Mr. Talbot, who I used to work for, who ran Talbot's 5 and 10 and was a good guy, really nice guy, he was a morning communicant, and he comes up to, I come out of the church one day, and he says, Barry, come on, I'll give you a ride home. And it was after a particularly bad morning, I'm like on the verge of tears to get home. No, get in, Barry. So I get in, and I go, I gotta get the paper for my folks. So we go to the newspaper store, and I go, I'll just cut through the parking lot and go to my, no. And so then, but on the way down to the newspaper store, he says to me, Barry, I like to think of myself as a good Catholic, but I don't, I'm so ashamed of myself, because I don't know what the problem with this Neri is. He doesn't call him Father Neri. He calls him Neri. And for this guy...
That's not a good Catholic by definition, right?
Yeah. And he says, I don't know what the problem with this Neri is, but I've watched you behave like Jesus. Turn your other cheek. Oh, you do nothing but try. No matter what he does to you, you just take it and you try to do your job, and you're a good boy. I've known you. I trust you in my store. You've never robbed me. You've never done anything. You're as good a boy as I've ever known in this town. And I'm going, and I mean, I don't even know. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to get in trouble for this. And
what's the catch?
Then he brings me to my parents' house, and he tells them the same story. Things got a little better after that, but.
Welcome to Political Talk with two guys from Boston, a working man's look at the socio-political issues of our day. And now, Political Talk with two guys from Boston.
This is Political Talk with two guys from Boston. We're brought to you by Bevilacqua Heating and Air Conditioning.
We're cool if you're cool.
I'm Johnny Condon.
Yeah, this is Robbie Sullivan.
There's a lot to talk about.
Busy month.
Climate change is wreaking havoc with the climate.
They say a lot of it's agricultural.
Russia owns everything now.
Yeah, but why wouldn't they? I mean, China's coming right in on them.
But most importantly, you got dental trouble.
Yeah, I think it's from all the freaking heating and air conditioning. I really do.
The Freon?
I mean, I don't know what it is. It seems like, if I find another crown in my roll, I'm going to think I'm like a king.
Ugh. How many crowns do you have?
I got enough for a few kingdoms.
Oh, Jesus. I have, I think, 11.
No.
My teeth, our family's teeth, the genes.
Hard head, soft teeth.
Yeah, it's the same consistency of Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Teeth.
Look at this. I can knock on my head.
Yeah.
That's my head, but my teeth, if I did that, they just fall out.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
I have weird nightmares that I have to bite into an apple.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's my mother looking for cigarettes. Ma, I'm at Bevilacqua. Can I give you a ring back after? I'll get you smokes. How'd it go? You all right? That's nothing. See, now you feel better, right?
Imagine a woman in a house coat.
All right, Ma, I love you. I really do gotta go. I'm not kidding. You can't start the story. I'm on the mic.
She's watching Kojak on MeTV.
Bye. Doesn't matter how many times I tell her I can't talk. It's better to pick it up because she'll call back 5 times.
I can't talk right now. Now you can't talk? No. Well, I was just calling to tell you.
I know.
I saw Carla Pedroli today at Shaw's. I can't talk right now, Ma. No, I know. She was at Shaw's buying English muffins.
Yeah.
And she was saying that they're not English muffins in England.
Can
and
you hear my mother? That's
I gotta go, Ma. My pants are on fire.
You don't like the jelly with seeds in it, right? That's not jelly, Ma. That's jam. What?
Yeah. What do they call them in England? You've been to England. You would know. I can't talk right now. That's fine. What was that show that you and your brother used to watch? I got to go, Ma. Dark Shadows. That was it. So scary.
And then even after I've already told her I got smokes, you really are going to get me cigarettes? Because I'll leave right now and get them. And I try to bring her 2-packs so that she doesn't call me every 15 minutes. But then she's always saying, I lost them. I don't know where they are.
I can't find my cigs.
I get to her house, there's 10 empty packs. She didn't lose anything.
Oh.
She just doesn't want to admit. When I talk to her on the phone, how are you? Are you smoking, Ma? No.
You ever notice when people smoke cigarettes on TV or in movies that the cigarette sizzles? When they have like a cigarette sound in movies and TV that doesn't apply. Crunch, 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 crunch.
It's true.
It's just a pretend sound.
Yeah, even Columbo's cigar never made a noise.
It says crunch, crunch, crunch. It sounds like you're walking on that crinkly paper.
Yeah, it's more like he was chewing on something. It's like it was the early chewing tobacco. It was an unlit cigar.
They have to make smoking dynamic.
It's like wet at the end. Like his dog had picked it up, carried it around the house.
Well, the problem with dental crowns, is that every 15 years you got to get them again.
Why is that?
Because otherwise you only pay for it once. And here's my fear, because I caught a puck.
Oh,
and I got 4 across the front.
Oh, that looks good though.
No, they look nice. They look nice.
You how long? I never knew that.
Oh yeah, I caught a puck.
How were your teeth before that?
Oh, I looked like the skyline of Dresden the day after the bombing. I had the worst teeth in the world.
Well, this paid off then.
Yeah, it looked like Godzilla had been through town. And so they fixed them up nice. But what happens is, when they take out the crowns and you get your crowns replaced, they look like Tic Tacs.
Oh, yeah.
They just get these little stubs.
Yeah, you look like it's True Blood.
Yeah, and I've got half my face is sunken in because there's no teeth to give my upper lip any form.
Yeah.
And my fear is that if we do go to Road Warrior times and there's no society no more, I can only be around as long as these crowns hold out. Because if there's no more dentists, once they go, I'm not fit for human viewing. I look like Gollum. I'll be out in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
Is it your mom again?
No, it is, but I'm not going to answer it. I don't know what. The thing about my mother, she's persistent. She's like, well, now can you talk? No, I'll call you when I can talk. I'm right in the middle of something, but she doesn't believe that we do.
Honey, is this a bad time? Yeah. Well, I'm kneeling at Dad's casket. I just wanted to say, when we leave here, you have to say hello to your cousin.
I told her that we got this gig doing these two political guys from Boston. And she said, "No, you guys listening to it afterwards? Is that what you do?" I'm like, no, other people listen to it. Who would listen to that?
Who would listen to you?
Yeah, why would they be interested in two heating guys?
They listen to Bob Gamia.
Well, they used to.
We could be the next Dana Hershey.
Yeah, I would love that. He was amazing. Channel 56. I missed that.
Hershey was on 38.
Oh, 38. You're right.
The movie
right.
Loft.
Yeah.
And it was every week was Clint Eastwood week. It was Clint Eastwood week the way it's Shark Week now.
Was it Tennessee Tuxedo that followed it? I think it was.
Chumley.
Yeah, I loved it.
Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley. They went together like Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They followed the Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley paradigm of human relations.
Yeah, and then Dana Hershey would like, "I'm coming up next."
And
that
Joe,
dramatic voice.
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee Tuxedo.
And coming up after Magnum Force.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an all-Shemp Three Stooges marathon.
Yeah.
I love the Waltons. You know why?
Why?
It was a simpler time.
Yeah.
I yearn for a simpler time.
I remember the summer that they first came to Walton Mountain. It was like, it could be about anybody because they wouldn't have known him if they hadn't come.
There's a Walton's Mountain in everyone's mind. Everyone in their mind has a Walton's Mountain, a place that you go. And I bought a bunch of DVDs at Building 19.
Did you?
Yeah. They still smell like smoke from whatever the warehouse fire was. But I bought them. But I don't watch the DVD. If it's on TV, I'll watch it because I feel like I'm watching this at the same time as other people. When I saw Aerosmith at the Garden, they sounded awful. But the thing I couldn't get over was I'm in the same place as Steve Tyler right now. He's in the same place as me.
Oh, that's funny. This woman at the grocery store, I've never seen that show, True Blood. I couldn't help it. It's on my mind because I was buying tomato juice.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, "Oh, are you drinking that instead of the True Blood?" And I didn't really know what she meant. So
sure.
she, with 10 people behind me, she starts explaining the premise of the show.
Oh, God.
Is that they're drinking this because they're vampires that don't want to kill anybody, which I guess sort of probably softens their characters.
Sure.
Makes us like them, maybe have some compassion.
Yeah. When people stop messing with a fake character, it's like, I will believe in vampires if they're vampires as I know them. But the minute you start putting in wrinkles, it's hard. It's too much disbelief.
You're trying to make me love them.
It's like, I'll believe King Kong coming out of the jungle, but I'm not going to believe him coming out of the jungle, scratching his armpit going, what time is it? Oh, yeah, I talk too. No, you don't.
Yeah.
One lie per lie.
Yeah. I can't go to bed thinking about why they drink fake blood.
Do you watch House of Cards?
I don't, but I heard it was very good.
Everyone watches House of Cards.
Yeah, he talks to the camera.
It's Kevin Spacey playing a straight guy who's married to a chick that looks like a dude. You figure it out. I'm confused already. In the 1930s, life was horrible.
It wasn't good.
But here's the thing that I find amazing. I'm with my brother. My brother takes his kid to the Children's Museum.
Oh, yeah. I love the Children's Museum.
Yeah, and it's down by the Tea Party ship.
Yeah.
This was back when the Tea Party was just people from
I love
the Revolutionary War. It wasn't a bunch of wackaloons.
Yeah.
So I go down there, and I'm just sitting on the bench because I don't want to go in the Children's Museum because children's bother me, and there'd be a lot of them in there.
Yeah.
And I'm having a sandwich, and I see a little bird with one leg.
Interesting.
So I throw him a crust of bread, and he picks up the bread, and then that other leg, bang! bang, just shoots out from underneath. And he had two legs. I was like, you motherfucker. And that is the problem with beggars and homeless people. The times are so tough, they have to work harder.
Yeah,
it's not enough to be homeless.
They got a costume bag around the corner.
Exactly. They have to have one leg. It's like if you see a homeless guy living in a box with a long white beard, that's not enough.
Yeah.
He's got to have a long white beard and live in a box and be wearing a wizard's hat or have a ventriloquist dummy that's a priest.
They got like smudge stick in their bags.
Yeah.
So you can come over and go like, all right.
They've got to look like hobos.
It's not working yet today. I'll put a little on my face, a little on my clothes. Now I'm getting money.
Yeah. If there was a homeless dude in zombie makeup, like homeless, money for brains, he'd get money. There's got to be a show. It's not enough to just rely on the sympathy of your fellow man.
Yeah. Well,
I need something.
Didn't Reagan empty out the mental institutions and make them homeless just so he could have people to talk to?
Exactly.
It's nice.
Exactly. Before Reagan, you could not walk down the street and watch a guy having an argument with a cloud. and then after Reagan, you could.
It's nice.
Yeah.
You get to realize, I'm above that. Not by much.
Right. Before Reagan, you could just drive off an exit of the freeway and you didn't have to avoid eye contact with a guy holding out an empty milk carton.
And dancing.
Yeah, hoping for enough change to buy a fucking apple core.
Yeah. How much is an apple core?
Oh, apple cores are very cheap.
Are they? Oh, that's nice.
You get them by the ton.
Oh, that's nice.
And then I use them for compost.
Now, when they get aerated, though, they get a little brown.
Oh, they get brown quick.
Fresh apple core.
So here's the thing. Apple cores are still garbage, but if you throw an apple core out the window, it's gone in 3 days.
Yeah.
I think you'd still get a ticket.
Yeah.
What could you throw out the window that would not be considered garbage?
That's interesting.
Like you can dump a coffee.
You can dump the coffee, but you can't throw away the cup.
Right, but you can dump a coffee. So could you dump...
A banana peel you can.
Can you?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to, like you said, with the apple core.
But I don't know. I think you get a ticket for it.
I think if you...
Or a hobo would slip on it.
If you throw it onto the grass on the side of that highway exit ramp you're talking about, I think you're all right. But if you put it on the street, now you're littering.
I bet if a cop was behind you and you threw a banana peel on the median grass, you would get a ticket.
I want to film
this.
this.
Just because he would be pissed that you did it in front of him. You did it in front of him. I got a texting while driving ticket because I kept going. I saw the cop behind me and I thought, well, bag, fuck it. I'm talking, and he followed me for like a block, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's going to a murder or something. And finally he pulls me over, and he basically chewed me out for not hanging up immediately.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not afraid of me. That's what made him angry.
I saw you doing it, but if you'd just been respectful.
Why aren't you quaking in fear? Because my brother's a cop. I know you're all half retarded.
And now they got these cars that they don't even look like a cop car. Yeah. So I didn't know you were a cop. I thought you were a kid in a Prius.
I wasn't afraid of you because my brother's a cop and I know you're a being with problems. You have a need for authority and you're taking it out.
I was trying to make you feel better. That's all. I just wanted you to feel better.
I thought you didn't notice me, and I thought this guy looks like it's at the end of the month. He's near his quota, and he needs to write some tickets.
I thought if I treated you like one of us instead of some almighty force, that maybe you'd feel better about you.
There's a motorcycle cop near my house who his whole job is a speed trap on Route 16, and he's got a fucking gut on him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why he sits there.
Yeah, he looks like the Octomom about 2 days before delivery.
I think when a cop gets too heavy, they should have him be running cops.
Yeah, exactly.
You now handle this duty.
At a certain point, if you can't see where your handcuffs are hooked onto your belt.
I grew up with some pretty great cops in my family, but even they had stories that you were like, oh, that's weird. Like these guys threw D. Brown down at the post office for being a black fellow.
Sure.
Just for being black.
Yeah.
They were pretty sure.
Well, in Boston, that's a BAWB. That's being awake while black. That's a problem in Boston.
Yeah, it's not good. You know what you did.
Sir, and it's like...
You've been doing it your whole life.
Yeah. What happened here? Well, a guy threw a brick through the store window, and he grabbed that out of the window. So can you describe him, please? Well, he was Caucasian. Interesting. A black man disguised as a Caucasian. No, I'm sure he was...
Yeah, no, we're pretty sure.
Yeah, I think we know how to handle it.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
He was wearing polo. He stole it.
The white guy turns himself in. I did it, officer. It was me. Interesting. So what you're telling me is the African-American has something on you that has... Clearly, he's holding your family hostage.
We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Don't say anything. Are you being recorded?
Do they have your... Are you wearing a vest of dynamite?
We'll follow you back.
I will tell you, the new troubled minority.
Yeah, who's that?
The trans community.
Oh, is that right?
They've had it.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Jared Leto got nominated for Dallas Buyers Club, and he played a transgendered woman.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that.
And they were not happy for something. I'm sitting at the Tip Top Diner in Mendon.
Sure.
I'm eating. And whatever you call him, trans woman.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you call him.
Was a dude. No, I'm not a dude.
Okay, fair enough. I don't mind that.
Reading a book and laughing.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, finally I go, what is it? And she says, it's this. And I think, Jesus, she's just like a person.
Yeah, they are. They're more and more like people every day.
Yeah, I think that's happening.
That's what they're doing.
Getting more like people.
Yeah, so now you don't really know for sure.
You got to back off.
Is that an ugly woman or a fairly decent looking guy who thought, I can go further with this?
I can run with it.
I'm going to do it.
I'm going to run with it.
There's a guy who works at the coffee place, and his name is Betty John. And you can see he's got a shaved head, so you can tell he probably wears a wig at night or somewhere when he performs somewhere or something, but he's got a mustache. And I thought, maybe not. Maybe I've been wrong about this the whole time. I'm not sure.
It's all a look. Steven Tyler is basically, what if Bonnie Fife and Jacqueline Smith from the first season of Charlie's Angels?
That's a nice mix.
That's a nice mix.
Yeah.
Hey, here's something I didn't realize. Are you ready?
That? Yeah.
Are you ready for
Johnny, go.
Do you mind if I drop a truth bomb?
Go, Johnny, go.
Paul Stanley?
Yeah.
That's a fucking wig.
No.
He's got to be 70.
Oh, well.
What 70-year-old guy has hair like that?
You might find great shampoo.
No, because I saw a picture of him in Us.
Oh. Now, is that the guy with the tongue?
No, that's Gene Simmons.
Oh, yeah, that's the other.
So my mother's friend has to get dialysis twice a week, but my mother can't drive because she's on a new medication that makes a handshake. So I've got to drive a friend to dialysis, but my mother has to go. Like, she's going to sanction the drive. Like, Jesus Christ, now I got to listen to two crows. And this is all I hear when I talk to them. It's like two crows, one with a bad kidney or whatever the fuck dialysis does. My mother is shaking. She looks like an old movie that's skipped a sprocket.
Well, they say that the crow has an onion, and by that I mean its brain remembers the generations before. There's a YouTube video my niece showed me where they give the crow something, they show it a lock, and the crow's like messing with the lock, and then it picks up this thing, turns it into a key, and opens the thing to get the food that's inside this little cage.
Shut the front door.
Seriously, crow.
Crows are viciously intelligent.
They're very smart.
Yeah, as are pigs.
Yeah?
Pigs are very smart. If you have a pig, it's not like having a dog. Like, you just can't put up a gate. They will call people to say, like, I have a gate in my house. I need it to be removed. Yeah, no, pigs are freakishly intelligent.
I didn't know that.
And delicious.
Oh, well, that's nice.
And I still eat them. I'm sorry.
I'd like to maybe start a product called Smart Bacon, like the smartest pigs of all.
Yeah.
Their bacon.
You're not vegetarian, are you?
On the weekends.
Oh, stop it.
No, because I go to my niece's house, and they're all vegetarian.
Oh, God.
No, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, oh, all right. My father used to say, yeah, but I just feel bad for the rabbits. What are they going to eat? Well,
that's the old joke. Vegans, vegans? Vegans don't live longer. It just feels longer.
I never heard that. I like that. Yeah, no, I'm not against any of these eating habits. I just don't like to claim myself in any club.
I understand.
I don't want to be a part of something and then have someone see me eating something and go, oh, you're also a liar on top of being a vegan.
I am a Taurus Catholic New England Patriots fan.
Then what were you doing at the Jets game?
You need to belong. Yeah. Everyone needs to belong.
No, it's true. You got to. People want to find their categories and settle in. I prefer to keep it all open. Then if I meet a girl, I can go, what are you? I'm like that.
Exactly. That's why I think in the future.
Yeah.
We all are going to get Mike Tyson-esque face tattoos.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Everyone had them.
A nice little design.
I'm afraid of the ones that you just take off and stick on you. Never mind getting a needle put in my arm. I don't even want to put one on that says, like, Daffy Duck for the day. I don't want to do it.
You don't see a lot of people with tattoos on their face hired in the planning department, if you know what I'm saying.
But if they just come up to the neckline, it's like some people shave their beard at a certain point, so they still have a beard.
Right.
But it doesn't go all the way down to their Adam's apple anymore. They got rid of that part of their hair. Well, with some of these tattoos, it goes only to right here where I can cover it with a shirt.
You're stuck in a turtleneck.
Yeah.
I'm a lifeguard in a turtleneck.
I think those people might have been turtles in a former life.
Here's a song they don't sing to themselves a lot because the concept has not landed. The sun will come out tomorrow, so don't do something you might regret, like tattooing your face.
I don't know. I like that some of the girls have like a little star here behind their ear. or something that's
Yeah.
a little hidden, but not really.
That's the button you push when you want them to stop blowing you.
I didn't know that.
Send your hate letters to
That's another button.
Bevilacqua Heating and Air Conditioning.
That's another button I'll never push.
Yeah, whoever does that, whoever would push that button, stop blowing me. Words you've never heard.
I'm not done. I'm just on a break.
In all the NSA files of the phone calls they've never heard, stop blowing me. Will you please stop blowing me?
We can't find it.
Even if it was somebody who didn't want blowing you, if you were just at the bus stop and you looked down and it was like Uncle Charlie from My Three Sons giving you a hump, all right.
Like, the bus is coming. The bus is coming. Don't worry, I'll take the next one.
I'm going to think of somebody else and you finish quick. I'm going to think of that chick from No Doubt and you just wrap it up.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even remember her name, but I remember her being a good singer.
She's nice.
She's really sweet.
I'm going to think of the girls from Hee Haw Honeys.
Oh, yeah. Weren't they Republicans, or was that a different band?
They all are.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we were going to tackle the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but we got off on several topics, none of which really developed. So I'm going to say fuck it.
Yeah.
Political Talk with two guys from Boston.
Ladies and gentlemen, people come up to me often and ask, Dana, what is it that separates you from the animals? Well, I'll tell you. For one, I know how to use color forms. And two, I shave. And I shave a lot because I'm one of those people that goes from a clean shave to a full beard in 37 minutes. And when I shave, I like to use Harry's shaving. I really do. Harry's was sparked by a personal experience of a guy named Andy, one of the company's founders. Andy went to the drugstore, had to wait 10 minutes for somebody to unlock the case, because apparently, as you've seen when you go into CVS, if you go in to buy razors and Sudafed, it's like trying to get on a goddamn airplane. Anyway, he bought a pack of razor blades, he bought some shaving cream. Not a big, exciting day. He went to CVS, so he had 3 miles of a receipt. And when he walked out, he had spent about $25. And he just thought there's got to be a better way. So he got some partners and they started this company called Harry's Shaving, and they just focused on one thing: how to give guys an easy yet quality-filled shaving experience. You get high-quality blades engineered in their own factory in Germany. If you don't believe in German engineering, read 20th century history. And there's also the convenience of ordering online. They're shipped to your door. It's a great product. I use it. If you use it, that's one more thing we have in common. And one more thing that separates us from the animals. Go to harrys.com, Harrys, no apostrophe, and use the promo code Dana, that's me, to save $5 off your first purchase. $15 gets you a set that includes the handle, 3 blades, and shaving cream, and these are all shipped to your door in a box. They even offer custom engraving to engrave your initials on your razor, or the initials of someone else. I have GM for Grandpa Munster, but that's me. Harry Shaving. Put an end to a hairy problem.
I just came back from New Zealand. How many of you been to New Zealand? Okay. New Zealand.
It's called Middle Earth.
Yeah. Middle Earth. They have signs everywhere saying like dangerous currents, falling rocks, sharks, tourist venue. So every place you go is deadly. There are rocks falling on the road. There was Haas Pass or something where the mountains are falling down, and then you go in the ocean, you're eaten by tiger sharks. It's like everything there can attack you, but everyone just plays in the water, climbs on the rocks, they do whatever. It's deadly danger. Beware of New Zealand.
And orcs.
And orcs.
And orcs. Yes. Yeah, we were there
Which,
too.
by the way, are in this, in the desolation of smog, there are many themes with orcs that were not orc populated in the books.
That's true.
Sorry if I'm turning you ladies on too much right now with my knowledge of Middle Earth and its various environs. biomes, if you will.
The closest I ever got to witnessing like a full meltdown, I was involved with a sketch comedy show. It was really, really terrible. It was really awful. We had the middle linebacker of the Chicago Bears. He was one of our older, Jack Rose or something was his name. Anyway, it was in the sketch comedy, we had to do a lot of underdressing. And so Jack Rose...
What does that mean?
Well, underdressing is a theater term. When you have to move from one scene to another very quickly, you just put the outfit of the next scene on underneath your clothes, and that way you just rip off the clothes you have on, and underneath you have the clothes for the next scene, and you walk right on.
Why isn't that called Supermanning?
Missed opportunity, theater world.
So Jack Rose was he played all of our businessmen, presidents, rich men who had to go to the bathroom, all the hilarious skits we were doing. And
Did you have a name? Would you have a name?
Did I have a name?
Did the sketch group have a name? Like
one of our actors is missing. That was the name of I wouldn't have remembered it. One of our actors is missing. And the hilarious kind of leitmotif to the whole thing was we're waiting for the really funny guy to show up. And he never does. We were performing at the Hyatt House, and Jack was playing the Marlboro Man in the next scene. So underneath his clothes, he had a leather vest, leather chaps, blue jeans, a cowboy shirt, bandana. But in the current sketch, he was playing a businessman. So to cover that up, they put him in a kind of a turtleneck thing and a suit and all this stuff. He goes out there, and we're doing the scene in the boardroom where he's playing it, and he starts sweating like Charles Barkley in the fourth quarter. It was like sweat was just running off of his nose, and I could see that his eyes were kind of going buggy, and I was kind of in the scene with him, and big puddle of sweat just running through his clothes, and then finally he just goes, I can't take it anymore! I can't take it anymore! And he stood up and started ripping his clothes off, and the audience thought it was part of the show. Natural. Because it was so horrible. And he got up and he ripped his clothes off, and when they saw he had cowboy clothes underneath, they really thought it was part of the show. But Jack had lost his mind at that point and did not stop at the cowboy clothes. So he started pulling his pants off, but he was wearing his leather chaps, and so he couldn't get them all down, so the pants were like dragging around. He had cowboy boots, bare-chested, and he's walking around, and the audience was laughing at him, and he goes, okay, laugh at me. I'm a big man. I happen to sweat a lot. And they were roaring, and I kind of like retreat. Because I knew one of the first rules of comedy, you don't come back from that one. No. Show is over, You cannot top it. So, no. But that was the closest I saw to in fact, that ended one of our actors is missing because Jack went missing after that.
Well, it's like anything else. Have you ever had your parents come to your shows?
No.
Really, never?
No.
Because I have, and you just have to ignore it.
My parents are not capable of emoting.
So your family doesn't really do feeling.
They don't, no. The Gould family crest is two lions sitting on a couch watching television, not speaking. Yeah.
I think the Benincasa family crest is just people crying and holding each other.
Oh, yeah. No.
So it works out well for us.
That's the antithesis. If you cried at a funeral, my dad would go, "What's wrong with you?" It's really true. There's a Latin phrase that I didn't know what it meant until, and then I looked it up, and it's roughly translates to death before intimacy. The Gould crest.
The system doesn't catch a lot of these people, and a lot of them are veterans. So here in LA, we have the biggest population, in Los Angeles, the biggest population of homeless female veterans in the country. And Skid Row is the largest stable homeless population in the country.
What do you mean by stable homeless population?
Well, not mentally, but as in
they all have horses.
It's not transient. They live there. You know, they have their tent city down there,
and they're allowed to keep it. And
they live there. I accidentally drove right down Skid Row, which is not an accident you want to make. And I was astonished. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen things like that. I mean, I grew up, in, friendly white suburbia. But this is different. This is something, it's a kind of homelessness that we don't have in New York. Maybe San Francisco's close.
This is it. They're not moving.
This is where they have a tent city where they live, and it's not transit. It's not like, all right, I'll go to this shelter, and then I'll go. It's like they live there, and so high incidence of
everything,
mental illness, and of course addiction, and dual diagnosis, triple diagnosis, quadruple diagnosis of a million different things.
Right.
And so a lot of times when I see homeless people, I don't necessarily engage always, but I think I'm a little less freaked out than some of my friends, not because I'm cool, I'm down with the homeless, give me a hobo, but because having been in altered mental states myself, due not to drugs but to my own brain, and having a brother who works with developmentally disabled people, which is kind of a different thing, I kind of feel like, all right, these are my people. Like, the difference between me and them is money. That's pretty much it. Like, I was
right. If you weren't allowed to get medicated, that you could have quite easily slipped through those cracks.
Absolutely. If I didn't have, the privilege that I grew up with, if I didn't, have parents, if they didn't have money, if I didn't have people who were open to seeking mental health treatment for their kid, absolutely. I mean, I was pissing in bowls in my room. I was afraid to leave my bed to go to the bathroom. I lived in a studio apartment. I was afraid to go to the bathroom. So I was pissing in bowls and like mason jars and stuff. Like, that's, like, it was that level.
That's called burying the lead.
Yeah, that is.
Remind me not to have cereal at your house. Can't walk across the room to go to the gym.
Yeah, I was afraid. I mean, I didn't go as far as like not.
Why do people save their pee and other terrible
really
pickup lines? Look, I needed to open with something.
Stop it! You're turning me on, Dana.
Excuse me. I noticed you're sitting here alone, and I was wondering if you knew why people save their pee.
You know what? It was like This is going to sound so like that didn't already sound fucking bizarre. This is going to sound weird. It was like I was producing something. Like I was doing something.
Like Bob Evans?
Yes.
All those runway models in Milan and Paris are going to have to continue to starve themselves until science can finally invent a coat hanger that walks. And then they'll be relieved of their duties.
Yeah, and then they'll be out of a job. And once again, we'll be giving it to the machines.
But that is the origin of that. They want skinny models so the clothes hang. And from that, you get girls in Casper, Wyoming puking into the bushes because they want to look like somebody they saw in a magazine.
Yeah, they're gaunt. They're just like, they're,
not to be confused with Gunt.
Not to be confused with gun. Their collarbones look like handlebars on a bicycle. Like they look like a fixie bike you could ride on the streets of Portland, Oregon.
Right.
On your way to the coffee shop.
I know.
Yeah, it was, it was really, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, what's the most painful thing that I've, if I thought about the most physically painful experiences of my life, there's like 3. And I thought
now 4.
Now there's 4, which are a cystoscopy, very fun. Mike Birbiglia talks about that. It is when they put a camera inside your urethra. So that's fun.
See,
Birbiglia does a great story about that.
Look, porn has gone too far.
I needed to make money for college. I was feeling better. I think it's interesting to think about, how many folks in entertainment will readily open up to you, not necessarily on a podcast, about their mental struggles.
Peeing in a bowl was not opening up to me?
No, but I mean, most people wouldn't tell you that story on the podcast, but they might just sit down and be like, yeah, man, I'm in therapy too, or I'm in recovery and I'm this and that. Like a lot of these very, these high powered individuals or these very creative people be like, oh yeah, I've done, it's not a bad city to be in if you're bananas.
No, it's the carnival and you're allowed to be a carny.
Yes.
And it is important to remember that it's just glorified carny work.
Yeah.
So don't take yourself too seriously.
Sometimes I call it finger painting.
Yeah.
We're all just finger painting on paper plates.
What is it that drives some artists? Obsession? Compulsion? What is it about a certain type of an artistic personality that has to revisit the same piece of psychic real estate again and again and again? Using their work, consciously or unconsciously, to solve the unsolvable, forever chasing their own psychological great white whale. Sometimes this pursuit yields an artist's greatest achievements, sometimes their greatest failures. And sometimes those two are one and the same. They certainly are in this instance. Witness, please, the strange case of Todd Browning. Todd Browning was born at the very end of the 19th century in Louisville, Kentucky, and he had it pretty good. He came from a wealthy, well-to-do family. His uncle, Pete Browning, was a baseball star on the day, and yet, at the tender age of 16, Todd left his life of comfort and ease and literally ran away to join the circus. Now, just a side note, the whole point of a circus is that it travels around from town to town, so you don't really have to run away to join it. All you have to do is just wait for it to show up. But I guess that just doesn't sound as dramatic. Mom, Dad, I've decided to wait around and join the circus. In any event, young Mr. Browning loved life along the Midway, where he worked as a barker, he performed as the Wild Man of Borneo, he worked as a clown, a magician, a dancer, but by far, his most fascinating stunt was his performance of the famous living corpse routine. The living corpse was a show-stopping sideshow specialty that usually took an entire weekend to pull off. A carnival would come into town on a Friday night, whereupon the magician or the hypnotist in the carnival would step forward and bet the assembled crowd that he would hypnotize someone in the crowd, one of them, into thinking they were dead. Browning, a shill, would step forward pretending to be that very local feller, and he would allow the hypnotist to try to hypnotize him. It, of course, worked. This was, after all, a pre-staged con. And Browning would then let himself be placed into a coffin and buried alive for the weekend. Now, the coffin had an air tube, but still. Browning later confessed, quote, "When I heard the dirt come crashing down onto that coffin, I actually shivered," end quote. To which I would add, no shit. Browning would lay in that coffin in the dark, underground, breathing through an air tube, eating malted milk balls that he had in his clothing for 48 hours. The locals were obviously astounded, even more so when he was exhumed on Sunday and brought out of the trance, pretending to not have noticed a thing. As creepy as it sounds, there is also this. Browning did this a lot. He eventually made his way to New York, where he became the director of a vaudeville house, met D.W. Griffith, who made Intolerance, and started making short films for Griffith's company, Reliance Majestic Pictures. In 1918, he made a film with Lon Chaney, one of the biggest stars of the silent era and the father of, you guessed it, Lon Chaney Jr. The film was called The Wicked Darling, in which Chaney played a thief who forces a poor girl from the slums into a life of crime and prostitution. Nice. The film was a big hit, and Chaney and Browning went on to make a dozen films together. The most successful by far was The Unholy Three, about three circus performers who steal jewels from the wealthy by using disguises. They also made The Unknown, in which Chaney played an armless knife thrower who falls in love with a, quote, normal woman in the carnival, played by a young Joan Crawford. Now, I don't know, but if you're born without arms and you're thinking of a job, I don't see, I got it, knife thrower. But that's the beauty of Hollywood. But you can probably notice a pattern forming. Browning's films always dealt with the darker impulses of humanity, and whenever he could, he set these morality plays in and around his beloved circus and sideshows. And all of the carnies who took him in and made him one of their own would serve as the players. Now, by this time, thanks to his relationship with Lon Chaney, they made many films together. Browning had become one of the hottest directors in the country. He had a house in Beverly Hills. He had a house in Malibu. But still, the stories he told and what he did when not working never strayed far from the Calliope-themed shadow world along the Midway. One of Browning's favorite ways to relax in those days was to go down to the Santa Monica Pier and watch the dance marathons. A popular attraction at that time, so steeped in sadism and human debasement that I'm surprised they haven't been brought back and televised. Dance marathons were quite simply that. A bunch of couples would sign up and start dancing. And then 24, 36, or 48 hours later, the last couple standing after everyone else had dropped from exhaustion or gone buggy was the winner. Bud Schulberg, who wrote On the Waterfront and What Makes Sammy Run, and what may be the best film ever made about the dark side of show business, A Face in the Crowd, described them thusly, quote, even more appalling than the victims on the dance floor were the regulars, affluent sadists in the same front row seats every night, cheering on their favorites who keep fainting and occasionally throwing up from exhaustion. Todd Browning, Schulberg noted, was among one of the most dedicated of these regulars. Browning also faced a new professional challenge, talkies, and he was slated to direct one of the most anticipated films of the day.
I am Dracula.
King Kong. No. Dracula was to be yet another collaboration between Brown and his on-screen muse, Lon Chaney Sr., but alas, prior to production, Lon Chaney died. Eventually, Universal Studios grudgingly accepted Bela Lugosi, who had originated the role on Broadway, to play the part, and the rest is history. So now we have Todd Browning in that rare position in the industry where he is able to write his own ticket. He can make anything he wants. So what does he make?
We didn't lie to you, folks. We told you we had living, breathing monstrosities. They did not ask to be brought into the world, but into the world they came.
A little movie called Freaks. Freaks, based on the story Spurs by Todd Robbins, is at its heart a revenge tale, set in, you guessed it, a sideshow. Cleopatra, the beautiful, if morally challenged trapeze artist, is dating Hercules, the strongman. But when she learns that one of the little people from the freak show, which is what they were called in those days, a gentleman named Hans, has a wealthy inheritance coming, Cleopatra and Hercules hatch their evil plot. Now, Hans was played by Harry Earl, who stood 3 feet and 3 inches tall, and traveled the country with 3 other little people as the Doll Family. One of them, his sister Daisy, plays his beloved Frida in the film. Cleopatra seduces Hans away from Frida. Frida tries to warn him, but alas, Hans, who has a little head, was thinking with his littler one.
Please, to me you're a man, but to her you're only something to laugh at.
Cleopatra reels Hans in and then slowly begins poisoning him so that he will die and she and Hercules can set off with his inheritance. Now, what sets Freaks apart from all of the other films set in the world of carnivals and sideshows is the fact that Freaks uses, if you will again pardon the expression, real freaks. Joining Harry and Daisy Earle in the film was a who's who of human oddities, star attractions of the day. Real-life Siamese twins Violet and Daisy Hilton, Johnny Eck, the man without a body, who had nothing below his rib cage but was an excellent pianist. Cuckoo the Bird Girl. Google image her and find out why she was called that. Prince Randy in the Human Torso. No arms, no legs, but if you want to see how he lights a cigarette, Freaks is your movie. And most famously, Schlitzie, the, as they were called at the time, Pinhead. Schlitzie, along with Elvira and Jenny Lee, the Snow Sisters, who also appear in the film, suffered from a neurological disorder that left them with abnormally small brains and skulls. They had the mentality of a 3 or a 4-year-old, but as the film attests, were very charming individuals, if only by the nature of their quite obvious natural sweetness and innocence. And therein lies the rub. Is Todd Browning exploiting these people? I say, in my own opinion, no. The monsters in the film are Cleopatra and Hercules, the so-called beautiful people. The freaks exist in a happy, peaceful Eden until those two snakes show up. It is the ending of the film that caused the most controversy. At an elaborate dinner ceremony, the other sideshow freaks inform Cleopatra, who they think is going to marry Hans, that they will accept her as one of their own.
We accept her, one of us. We accept her, one of us. Gooba gobble, gooba gobble. We accept her, we accept her. Gooba gobble, gooba gobble. One of us, one of us. Gooba gobble.
This proves too much for Cleopatra, who finally loses her shit and lets her revulsion show. The freaks take their revenge by killing Hercules. In the first draft of the script, he was castrated. And as far as Cleopatra, they do keep their promise of making her literally one of their own by transforming her into what you see at the end of the film, but it's something you have to see for yourself. That, to me, again, in my own opinion, is contrary to the theme of the picture. For if the freaks are in their own way beautiful, one could not view making someone one of them as a punishment. But that is an argument that I can have with the people who made the film, but they're dead. Freaks was Todd Browning's magnum opus, the film he had to make. He had a lot of cachet and credibility in Hollywood, and he put it all on the table to get this very personal story made. And as a reward for his efforts, the film was a disaster. For all intents and purposes, ending Todd Browning's career. Audiences hated it. One woman who attended an early screening of the film threatened to sue MGM, claiming the film gave her a miscarriage. Studio boss Irving Thalberg eventually cut pretty much a third of the film, reducing its running time from 90 to 62 minutes, but to little avail. Audiences were not ready to see it, not ready to embrace it, nor were they ready to forgive Todd Browning for making it. His labor of love, the story he could not let go of.
They did not ask to be brought into the world, but into the world they came.
Now, you may want to see Freaks. You may want to read Spurs, the story that it was based on. I highly recommend reading the book Dark Carnival, the biography of Todd Browning by David Skal. I also recommend you see, if you haven't already, A Face in the Crowd. Where can you see these? You can get everything I've described at Amazon.com, but first, I would ask you, politely, to go through DanaGould.com. Click on our Amazon banner, and all of these are yours for not one extra penny, but we get a little something to keep the lights going here at the Dana Gould Hour. And now, more podcast. Did your parents ever talk to?
They never told me if they did or not. I don't know.
What did Neri ever? Did it come out about him?
Oh God, yeah, it came out big time about him, and he was really. Well, you heard what I told you. The things.
Right.
He did.
Oh, so yeah, of course that came
like,
out publicly.
Yeah,
and he was alive when it came out, or?
Well, they had him pretty well sequestered. It was funny. There were these two assistant priests, pastors or whatever they call them, at the church, and the one before him was the great guy who started the summer basketball league and all this thing. He's a nice guy, Father Davitt, and eventually he decided to leave the priesthood because he couldn't, he wanted to get married. So, so they cut him completely out. They won't even give him his little. Now he's old and he doesn't get his little pension or whatever.
Right.
But they spent, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands of dollars keeping Neri, caged off.
Right.
After it became clear how horrible. So this one guy who was good to all the kids, who treated everybody right, who was decent, he's out in the cold for immorally going and getting married because all that shit. The church, banned marriage because they didn't want its property to be spread out among heirs of the bishops and whatever.
Yeah, and if you were married, you would give your property to your children, not the church. And there's a great, brilliant real estate scam.
Yeah. Well, I've always said the church is based on fear and real estate.
It is. No, it's the foundation of why priests can't get married.
Yeah.
People don't realize it's all about land.
Yeah.
And nothing to do with anything in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's about real estate.
Yeah. And so now, there's something people should know when they listen to any Catholic leader or priest talk. They have a thing called mental reservation, or broad mental reservation, and that just means that they are obliged to lie if it's for the good of if they deem it for the good of the church.
Right.
So you can say to a priest, "Well, are you exercising mental reservation now?" "Oh, no."
And that's in itself. And that's in itself.
Yeah, right. So then how do we ever trust them? I just think that institution is so corrupt, and I don't care if the Fox News flack has the guy tweeting. I tweet him every day. I tweet the Pope every day demanding excommunication, and I really hope that at some point they take me seriously, because I don't want my friends dragged into that church when I die, just in case that happens. But what really I want to do is say that I don't know what the deal is. I'm a lapsed agnostic, as I say, but if whatever the deal is, I know that if I end up where they are in the afterlife, I am in hell. That's hell. Wherever they're going is hell. And so I don't want to go with them. I don't want to be associated with them. These people, they ruined Ireland. Only thanks to the Catholic Church in Ireland, like chronic alcoholism is considered a quirky character trait.
Exactly.
Because of how much they went through. They ruined the country.
Yes.
It's like any child born out of wedlock is basically sent into at least slavery, if not sexual slavery. Mm-hmm. Just what went on forever. Right? It's just terrible, and they kind of brushed that one off. But I just want to be excommunicated, and
can't you demand it?
I have been.
They're keeping you in the church for spite?
I haven't could say, well, he's lost his way, but you can see from some of the other things that he's a well-intentioned person, so he's a little off here, but the point is, you don't scare me with your crap about this stuff. You do not control the gates to heaven. If there's a heaven, you are not, you didn't make the guest list. Shut up. And I've known, and I know what you've done, and I know what I've done, and I'm at least up the spiritual chain from you.
What I understand of Buddhism, and the more easy peasy ones, it's just ways to control large groups of people.
And an easy way, and that's where the sexuality stuff comes in, to pass through.
Right.
And so it's a great place for ambushes.
Yes.
And then you have all this teaching that makes people hate themselves for wow, you feel like that? What's the matter with you? And it's like, I have the urge to procreate. Oh, no.
I know people who have openly gay children, and who they love and accept and welcome, and they have no issue with it at all, who go to Catholic Church, and where their children would be taught to hate themselves.
Right.
You know, I that always boggles my mind.
Well, I mean, it's deep. Twain said, and see, I do quote one person too much. Twain said, "We can overcome anything but our training."
It's training, and Eastern religions do that.
I've never been with what I went through in the one religion I had. The last thing was going, well, let me go. Let's go check the rest of them. It's like, you know what? Good luck to everybody. I'm going to try to be a decent person, and if that's not good enough, you know, hell is very crowded.
Out of this country, was there anyone who was able to say things like this? Was there anyone who stood up for?
Well, Paine, and that's classic American stuff. I mean, Paine was the cornerstone of everything that happened back then. You know, he definitely was a huge influence on
Thomas
Jefferson.
Paine.
Yeah, Thomas Paine. Yeah, as I say, no Paine, no Twain. But but the cornerstone of this guy, there should be a Thomas Paine Day, and as it is, we're not even sure where he's buried. You know, we aren't even sure where the guy's buried, and he was as important to the founding of this country as anyone. They never would have pulled that off without him. But once it got passed, they realized, well, we're not going to apply his rules to us. We're in charge now.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the whole point. Yeah. How much of this stuff do you let in before you just find yourself incapable of like having a firm belief in anything? Right. Because every major thing that you, if you're a God, like if you say he's a God-fearing American, he's a good, solid, God-fearing American, that's the term of that's solid citizen. Goes to church, loves his country. I'm like, well, they're both really fucked up. So, like, you know, at what point do you just go? It's like when people realize that Obama actually was a politician, and not the savior.
Well, I mean, you know, he's the first black president, like the 28th from the Ivy League. Guess which counts?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say he's only half black. And I prefer to think of him as half white, but I'm a glass half empty kind of guy.
that's my old joke about the Exxon Valdez thing. You know, this oil spill happened, and he came out and said, nobody ever mentions how much oil didn't spill. Is the tanker half empty? I found a way to save the oceans. You hire major oil companies to transport seawater across.
Are you?
But I mean, as far as like when you were just saying, and it's a very interesting point, but where do you go if you can't believe this, you can't believe that? Well, I guess you have to. For me, the thing is to just learn that I have to trust myself.
Right.
And I think that really the story with this world is too many kids grow up in situations where they're mistreated, neglected, whatever it is, and no one's taking the rap for it, so they figure it must be me. There's something wrong with me. No one else is saying all this crap that's going on is wrong. Right. It must be me. So to corroborate their self-loathing, then they might start doing some stuff that makes a little more, you know, that is a reason to hate yourself. And it goes from there.
Metastasizing.
Because kids, you know, aren't taught to listen to their hearts. You know, okay, your heart is good. You know, your mind and your heart have to be, you know, sanity is when your brain and your heart are working together. And when they aren't, then, you know, you're in this constant conflict, and you can physically feel it. At least I can.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that you have to try to figure out how to trust and love yourself, as corny as that may sound and as trite as that may sound. You start from there, you trust yourself, and then everything is just a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. You just take it on one thing at a time, figure it out, and ask the right questions, and don't be calm. I mean, don't be defensive, and don't be, you know, don't be scared. And figure out if you are scared all of a sudden. Figure out that was probably instilled in you somehow.
Yeah. Ask yourself why you're really scared. Ask yourself. I've done that too. Like, why are you really scared? What are you really afraid of? You go online or read the paper. It's easier to be told what you think.
Right.
It's just,
our opinion is supplied to us on a regular basis. And also, the debate is described. This is why people send me stuff every day. Did you see what Rush Limbaugh said? And I'm like, of course not. What am I, an asshole?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I knew not to listen to that guy over 20 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, fascist, fascist grease-sweating, blowhard liar. Gee, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Oh, he said something outrageous today. But in the meantime, that makes Rush Limbaugh the subject of today, and we're not talking about prison
Something
reform
real.
or
Right.
child abuse or Fukushima or you name it, or climate change. We're talking about Rush Limbaugh,
Right. And what he said about Michelle Obama.
Right, exactly. Or
Yeah.
or the duck nitwits, for
Right, yeah,
3
exactly.
weeks of them.
Yeah.
What weren't we talking about? We're like, wow, you mean these guys? Wow.
Exactly.
They're bigoted. Holy shit!
Exactly.
Can't believe that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was astounding.
Yeah.
And then in a beautiful corporate fashion, he was fired and rehired Friday at 5:01.
yeah. Perfect. Was it?
He was, yes, literally like at the very end
Yeah,
of the
right.
news cycle for the weekend, they
Right.
rehired him quietly.
Right.
Everybody who's a performer, you want to be well known, and you want to be, if not noted, famous. You want people to know who you are, and certainly I did.
Yeah.
But
the
then you look
extreme craving for external approval means, in many cases, that you don't approve of yourself.
Yes,
and that's it.
Yeah, you do need it, and also
I got to this point. I realized I would much rather risk the entire world's disdain than my own self-loathing, because nothing does more of a job on me than when I know I did wrong, or I shut up when I shouldn't have shut up, or I went along with crap where I know it's really there's people animal, whatever. Whatever, there's something wrong going on, and it would be a lot more convenient for me not to say something.
Well, that's a more articulate way of what I was trying to say, which is just that I've always tried to play someone else. I didn't know what to think or what to say, but I can play the asshole and show everybody exactly what that looks like.
What not to say. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm better at that.
Hilariously.
I'm so good at it. By the way, my name's John Ennis. My manager is, no, I'm kidding. But truly, that is...
SAG-AFTRA owns own tux.
Yeah, I'm going to be 50 this year.
John is going to be 50 this year, or as they
John's
say at Comedy Central, 400 years old.
Don't tell Gary Mann. I shouldn't have called Gary Mann that.
Your age begins with a
John's
4?
playing a humble guy today.
Fame. Look who is famous now. The Duck Dynasty people.
Yeah.
The Kardashians. Those are the celebrities now. So if you want to be a celebrity, those are the people you have to hang out with.
I came up with an idea for a new show. It's called Piss on Yourself. And what it is around the country.
When in college, I knew that game.
Well, it's gone from it's graduated. So we send talent scouts around the country where local people piss on themselves, and the people who are best at pissing on themselves are brought to Hollywood, where they have a chance to be pissed on by a real Hollywood producer.
I've never watched anything, and then I finally, my ex-wife loved to watch one of the wives shows of the Hot Wives of Atlanta or whatever. And I was watching it, and I realized that it was like, and I've done this in my act, but it's like, these are people.
All you've heard is my fucking. I didn't know there was some. Did I do something immoral?
No, not at all. But like, I'm so hyper aware of it because I'm on the show a lot. It's people who aren't actors in situations constructed by people who aren't writers.
Right.
Second guessing how they think you would like to see them behave if this were a real situation.
Right.
But it isn't.
Yes.
Wow.
And you're passively observing
Yes.
it.
Right.
It's an amateur production of nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've gotten on shows where the show was, I'm going to play a chef, and I'm going to come out, and the people are going to be eating something that's horrifying, and I'm going to look at them as they're eating. But these people, I'm supposed to now do a comedy or acting off of some guy who works at Restoration Hardware, and they're just hoping we can mine it for some of their pain and put it out there.
Right.
I just don't like that stuff.
I just, I did. I changed the subject a little bit, but while I was out here, I got a really good deal on 130 cases of the first season of Hoarders.
That is an odd, weird fetish that people have. Here's 2 CDs of Columbo.
Yeah.
Here's the whole thing?
Yeah.
All of Columbo?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
But why?
Right. Yeah, particularly. That show was so varied, too.
I love...
He's solved another one.
I loved on Kung Fu would always have a great... At the opening of the show, you'd meet 2 characters.
Right.
One of them, Kane would help, and one of them, Kane would kick in the head.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, did you read Dylan Farrow's letter?
Yeah.
And as someone with experience in that world and knowing victims,
looks pretty solid to me.
Yeah.
And and that's so now you're looking at someone with all this fame and talent and whatever, and again, people want to we really idealize people. That
you don't want to believe it.
Yeah, of course not.
Right.
And so this is a classic case. This will get a lot of people. There'll be some real vicious attacks against that young woman, and just some of the stuff, the way, if she's trying to construct this thing, she's doing a very good job, because it's the patterns are quite similar to ones I hear from cases where no one would ever know about.
And you do work with victims of abuse, you should say.
Yeah. And I mean, it's ringing pretty true.
Right. Well, there's 2 things about it that I
mean, like, we're kind of looking away from his whole marriage. That's sort of an indication.
That's the one. When the biggest defense of the marriage is he's not her biological father.
Well, no, and he says that. As if that's an insult to adoption everywhere. It's sort of like, well, I'm going to adopt you, but after a while, if you turn out,
I have 3 Chinese daughters, so I'm completely
It's they're your daughters.
Right.
They're your daughters,
and
period.
If there was a girl that became their sister through another relationship, another marriage, my wife, and I didn't even know her.
Yeah, you would still.
And when she got older, my children think of her as their sister. Whether or not I know her is irrelevant.
Yeah, there's a cloak of immunity there.
Yeah, are you going to damage your kids?
Yeah.
Or are you not going to damage your kids?
Right. Who comes first here?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing that I find interesting is, in a lot of the people that do defend him, and I found the most risible was this guy, Bob Wheaties, defended him, because in his defense, the big points that he wanted to make is they're still friends. There's nothing that was revealed in this that wasn't revealed earlier. It's like, look, you're saying one of 2 things. Dylan, you weren't molested.
Right.
If that's what you want to say, just say that.
Yeah.
But you don't want to say that because you can't say that.
Yeah. I don't know what the percentage is in this woman coming forward, except for the fact that she needs to get through this and process.
Yeah.
Because you have to go, you either go through things or around them, and you never get done going around things, so you might as well go through them. But this is a hell of a thing to have to do with a person, you
can't carry that shit around.
I was molested as a child by an icon. That's a pretty tough one. People don't like to have their icons, being sexually creepy with children, and that's and even there, I'm kind of sanding it off and just saying sexually creepy.
Right.
He wasn't sexually, he was sexually assaulting her from what Dylan is saying, and I happen to believe her.
Right.
But it's you take away if you take away all the fame and all that, it becomes a pretty typical case.
Scenario.
Yeah.
If he wasn't Woody Allen,
yeah,
if he was a guy that married his ex-wife's adopted daughter, and the other daughter said that no one would question it.
Right. Yeah, right. It isn't even classic because it's extreme because of the fact that he married another daughter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the refutation of it is all the refutations of it are so shaded. He actually is married to a girl that was not his biological daughter, and she wasn't really a part of the family. Right. The other, this was in the Weedy rebuttal of her thing. Sunyi wasn't really considered a part of the family. The other kids said she was aloof. So she was cool to marry. Right. She was always wearing headphones.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just it's really too much for people to feature. And plus you feel like part of it is like you don't want to have been, gee, I really like that guy. I got sucked in. So I spent a lot of time liking that guy, and now I got to think that it's not convenient.
Yeah, can I not have a? Well, that was the premise of her letter that I actually thought was really brilliant. Do you have a favorite Woody Allen movie?
Yeah,
and I do. Ironically, my favorite Woody Allen movie is Crimes and Misdemeanors. The story of that movie is that moral choices are their own reward, and yeah, you can get away with a completely immoral act, but you shouldn't.
Right.
And then, but that was actually, he was arguing the other side of that.
Right.
I just find it really fascinating, and to watch people squirm around, and
there's so much stuff that people don't know or won't see because they're scared of it. I mean, I think a lot of what happens with the child abuse and the understanding of it has to do with the fact that people are both kind and cowardly. So they're kind. They don't want to live in a world where this stuff happens to children, and they're cowardly. They don't want to know about it.
Jerry Sandusky's book, before anything came out,
Mr. Hyde in Broad Daylight.
The name of his memoir.
Yeah.
Touched.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, really, they scream at you.
Yeah. And the week.
By the way, I thought they should have knocked down the stadium and left up the statue of Joe Paterno. Hey, here's what he did. There's a guy who came right down to it, and he was thought of in these heroic terms by all these people for so long, but when it came down to it, he had a choice between, cowardice and getting away, moving along, or confronting something that's difficult and would create some problems, and he took the cowardly way out. So, he might be great at being, teaching them on the field of battle, but when it came down to it, he was a coward, and he tried to slink away. But of course, his heavy Catholic background was good training for that.
But also, was his heart attack?
He checked out pretty quickly.
That's what I mean. Could he literally not live with himself anymore? Could he literally just I can't take the internal conflict of the
I can't.
guilt.
I mean, I wouldn't. But because I work in this stuff so much that when I'm asked questions like that, I have to literally go, I can't speculate about that. Because then they're going to go, this nutty guy said blah, blah, blah. So, I try to really just go with exactly what I have.
Why are all creative people crazy, or just crazy people creative? The strength of your brain in that regard, you can, if it's focused, you can do these incredibly creative things. And if it's not focused, you can go off the deep end. There's a theory that, they say Brian Wilson, up until Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson, who I've talked about at length on the show, there was in 1966, he and the Beatles were neck and neck, but it was just him versus all of the Beatles. And it was all right, you'll make Rubber Soul, I'll make Pet Sounds. You four made that, actually five, including George Martin. He did it all by himself.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's insane. You can't. And then when he started to do Smile, he cracked. I don't know if it was the official diagnosis of schizophrenia or what happened, but he was hearing voices.
And he was certainly severely depressed.
Yeah, this is all well documented. And he didn't do himself a lot of favor by ingesting a lot of random drugs.
Right. A lot of black tar heroin.
Right.
Hanging with Van Dyke Parks.
Yeah, he did that, yeah.
Kicking it.
Yeah.
Playing a piano in the middle of sand.
Exactly. In your house.
Yeah, in his house.
But there's a theory that the brain chemistry that just before you go into schizophrenia, that you do have this this rush of genius because like the stuff is flooding in, but it's not enough to put you over the edge yet.
I totally believe it.
And so like it was just like this biochemical happenstance that he just had enough of the stuff at the right time and just went insane, and then eventually it pushed him over the edge. This is all, it's something I read. This isn't factual. I'm not.
Right. But I could believe that. I would certainly believe that. I would also believe.
Like Van Gogh, like he didn't, Van Gogh,
as they say in Britain.
Gogh.
Van Gogh.
But, all of that came from great mental duress.
There is an element of mania to creativity, I think.
Yeah, in life that made them need to self-medicate or take their lives. It is not separate from their creativity.
Right. It's all of one piece.
You can't really pull them apart.
I once felt bad because I had no podcast. And then I met a man who had no blog.
Well, when I was 21, I had this nervous breakdown that was so comprehensive that I didn't even leave my bedroom. Like even to...
Like a Brian Wilson.
It was like lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did.
What brought it about?
I think it was just years of unchecked anxiety. Smile? Yeah, I was like...
Mike Love wouldn't let her record Smile with Van Dyke Parks.
It was my relationship with Van Dyke Parks that led to it directly. It was just years and years of untreated, unchecked anxiety that sort of spiraled into agoraphobia. And then eventually I didn't even leave my bedroom, like even to bathe or anything.
Been there, done that.
And so I had to leave college like you do, because your grades generally don't thrive when you refuse to go to class because you're afraid to leave your bed.
And what's your roommate doing?
I was living by myself.
Okay.
I was living by myself
Also
in a
good.
studio in Boston at the time.
Uh-huh.
And
but Boston, as a resident of Boston, that they're also open to feelings if you're having a rough time.
Oh yeah, they're super guilty.
I'm overwhelmed with anxiety and I just don't feel like I can leave the house. What are you, queer?
Fuck
Quit
you!
being a retard. That queer's so retarded he's on a date with a girl. No, he's just a guy on a date. No, clearly he's a retarded queer.
Exactly. It wasn't the most feelings-oriented place. So, anyway, my point is this, that because I got
like that
to
was
a place...
that was the big thing about the Kennedys. Like, there was, Kennedys don't cry. Like, good, healthy. Everybody we know has been shot in the head. Don't have any feelings about it. No, I won't.
Oh, they scare the shit out of
Let's
me.
drink this boat.
Well, anyway, I basically made a decision that was like, I got to this place where I was suicidal and it was so dark and so bad that I thought, once I felt better, medication and therapy and all that stuff, I thought, well, fuck it. I'm just going to do the things that I'm afraid of because I don't know how long I have. I felt like I had kind of stared into that abyss at a pretty young age. So I thought, well, I don't know how long I have. I don't know if this incredible depression is going to come back or if I'm going to get hit by a bus or what the fuck's going to happen. So I'm just going to do weird stuff and have fun with it. And that's sort of driven my whole career. And now that's how I pay the bills, is just by doing weird shit. And it's awesome.
So you're basically living your bucket list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson and me just hanging out together, living life, shooting the shit, fucking our step-granddaughters, Morgan Freeman style. Just, that's my life. And it's beautiful.
Oddly, it was the same week, unless I'm mistaken, that the Sandusky stuff came out. Mm-hmm. Was also the week that the doctor who prescribed the medication that killed Michael Jackson was found guilty of medical malpractice. Okay. And the same people who were saying that Jerry Sandusky should be killed were also screaming for the blood of the guy who killed the other pedophile.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. Well, I just hope that if this keeps one kid from anesthesiologist shopping, we will have learned a good lesson. But Sandusky was just he forms an organization designed for, at-risk children. So now, I mean, it was just like it was a dream come true.
It is
just
nefarious.
penning them up, and and how diabolical that was.
Yeah, it is, and the way that people did, like, I reported it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. The kid getting raped in the shower. I mean, it's just. And by the way, we have to use the right words. Like, like people will say to me, "Oh, he was diddling little boy."
No.
I don't know. I don't even know what diddling is. But if I wanted to do it with another adult, it sounds like it could be fun.
Right.
Raping is not something you do for fun. I hope.
Right.
We should use the right words. So it's like, it's sexual assault, it's gross sexual imposition, it's rape, it's whatever it is, and call it what it's called. And you don't call it, you at least call it child pornography unless you want to really say, images of, heinous human rights offenses being committed against children. You say that, but kiddie porn makes it sound like the Bunny Hill or something, and I don't care. Oh, it fits in the tabloid headline. Well, I don't give a shit, find a different headline.
And the internet, I think, has brought that into people's lives in a way that it was that people that would be interested in it can find it with such ease now.
Well, I guess I'm out of that because I did my part early on, and I spent a year in chat rooms with those people.
Right. You should, if you don't mind.
In 1995, I was first on AOL, like every other moron, or 94 or whatever it was. And I'm an abuse survivor, so I'm in some abuse survivor groups, and mostly I'm not doing that well with them because it's just a bunch of people talking about which kind of pharmaceutical dry ice they were being put on, and I by this point I was about pushing 40 then, and I wanted to, I'd lost enough time.
Right.
So I wasn't going to sit there zoned out forever because, they were trying to figure out, how to put me on the ice. But I just wanted to go through it and do it because I had lost among other things, you lose your childhood. That's a lot,
Yeah.
So I didn't want to waste any more time. So I kind of got steered away. But in those groups, I found out they kept saying there are these child pornography rooms and whatever going on in these horrible rooms on AOL, and I just saw the public rooms, and I would go through the public rooms, and there would be a couple gay ones, and go like, what's the matter with these people? It's just, And then someone said, no, you have to go to the member-created rooms. Suddenly, hundreds and hundreds of rooms, and and you could look up my testimony online. It's there. I ended up testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about it, and just the titles of the rooms alone, dads and daughters, it just goes on and on and on. And there were hundreds of these rooms and hundreds of these people, and what they were was making $3 an hour. Everybody that was on there, after 20 hours or something, was paying $3 or $4 an hour. I can't remember that on AOL, and so they were making a lot of money. Because in those days, to send one photo, it took a half an hour on those, 2,800 baud rate modems. And so, they were just, and the thing that the pedophiles all talked about second most is how much they were all spending on AOL. They had $1,200 a month or whatever. But to them, it was the first time they had a community. You can't really join in the pedophile community. Right. It's pretty hard to figure that out, I guess. In child pornography, you have to go to Sweden or something to get it in the past, and now it's available. This is a bad case of workers seizing the means of production. Right. So I'm in these rooms, and then when I first get in them, I'm just going like, what's the matter with you people? And they literally are talking about, we've got a First Amendment right or whatever. And I can't remember the guy is a good writer. And he said, you can pretend. That's like saying, you can mug somebody and call it performance art.
Yeah. That's not what the First Amendment is for.
You can try, but these are heinous human rights offenses. It's rape. People who haven't seen child pornography, people who say, oh, this is not that, they're just consuming or whatever. If you are asking for child pornography, you're demanding that somebody do that.
Do it to furnish it.
You're okaying, you're signing off on it. I don't care. You're asking for it. But so I end up in these chat rooms, and I I just put a character up who says, or the screen name is Two Kids, because it was a boy and a girl, because our stupid parents make us use the same account, is what it says in the thing. And then inevitably, whoever was in these rooms, when I come in, if they're interested in a little girl, they're looking for her. If they're interested, but as soon as I would come into the rooms, people would just start sending me child pornography back in the day. If you're in the room, it was sort of like we all send all our child pornography to each other. It was that brazen at the time. And I kept going back and forth with AOL about it, and they're playing it dumb because they're making a fortune.
Right.
Yeah. So I end up then I end up in Washington, and I testify, and and I was like Marge Simpson in the Itchy and Scratchy when she wanted like the one lone nut, Marge Simpson. Yeah, that nut. Yeah. That was me. I was Marge Simpson. I was Marge Simpson about child pornography. I'm like, this has got to, and AOL wasn't taking me seriously, and they weren't taking me seriously. But then later on, I talked to someone who was in AOL security. It was like about 6 years ago, tracks me down and wants to, admit what went on. They go, well, when you first came, they were paying a little bit of attention to you. And then a few more people. And said, by the time you were ready to testify, there was like half a floor of people just figuring out what to do about you. And so Marge did her job. So I end up, I get there, and they send this slick lawyer whose shoes are worth more than my education. And he thinks he's going to KO me, but fortunately I'm a nightclub guy. Fortunately I'm me, and I'll argue with it. I don't care if you're a lawyer and I'm not, So at one point, Russ Feingold is asking this guy, Burrington, I think was his name. He's asking him, well, Mr. Crimmins said earlier that on one day he would be sent a large number of these images from a person. He would report the person, and the next day the person would be back online. And this guy interrupts right away and says, well, I just want to make one thing clear. At AOL, we have a strict 3 strikes and you're out policy concerning child pornography. And I chime in, nobody loves baseball more than me. But that's a 1-strike offense in any league I've ever heard of. And I literally get the laugh and the applause from the gallery and whatever, like in the movie. Then we must have. So, but that was the end of him. And the next day, AOL was calling me up to tell me about their new plan, and they went to the $20 a month stuff at that point. They had to anyway economically, but they got just about every last nickel out of those people they could. And now, and so that's why I don't write for the Huffington Post. That and the fact that writing is not my hobby.
Yeah, I know. That I've been in that. I've been on the receiving end of those phone calls.
The only way you can make any money with them is if you ghostwrite op-ed pieces for movie stars.
You should blog for us.
Yeah.
Well, I have a house. I didn't divorce a billionaire.
Yeah, right.
Wait, I did.
I know. I wasn't going to say anything. I watched stuff when I was in those chat rooms, and people just go through all the pornographic stuff. I had to go through all the pornorgraphic.
I don't know. I don't know how you can do that.
I thought I was kind of a spicy guy, before I did this.
Yeah.
It turns out I'm like, Hugh Beaumont. I thought I was like, I've had a pretty good sex life. Right. These people, I can't. It's just like. They need captain's chests brought into the hotel to put the devices before. But I had to go through and figure out, there's a difference. So I got a little education there, and I would have to go through all the rooms. But there was these people. You could see what rooms they were also in, and you could see that some of these people were just browsing pornography and whatever. And they, and then they went into this room. They didn't really maybe exactly know what it is. And they got, and even in that case, if you just went in there in those days, people would start sending them child pornography. People should all know that if they ever get sent it by mistake or whatever, it's like someone handed you, a bag of heroin. Yeah. You're gonna, it's a Class A felony, and you better be thoughtful about it and about keeping track of where it came from and telling the, proper, I use the term loosely, but as best we can do, authorities about it. But I mean, at the time, I was calling cops around the country because I would figure out some kid was in this town and he's about to meet with some guy. And I call up, and literally I called this one town in Oregon, got the police department on the line, and they said, well, what are we supposed to do about it? Oh. I said, I don't know. There's a crime being committed in your community against this kid there. AOL will not give me this info, but if you come after them, they probably would, and then maybe we could protect the kid. And they were like, I don't know. And that's it. And then I knew this other cop that worked on this stuff, and this is 95, and the other cops called him a faggot because he worked on, this literally like child abuse cases, and he's still doing that faggot stuff. One thing people will say to me, because they know how I feel about child abuse and how I'm active trying to, stop it, is they'll say, I just think those people should be killed. And it's like, or they snicker about them getting raped. Well, they'll get Bubba and the. No, I abhor all rape.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's okay to rape here because when you're doing that, other people are going to get raped, and then maybe they're going to be raging rapists or whatever. Right. But there should be, I oppose all rape, and I don't snicker about. I don't think rapists should be raped, and I don't believe in the death penalty. And I'm glad that after I was abused as a very young child, that when I turned 18, they didn't come up to me and go, that guy that did that to you? Yeah, we killed him for you. Because now I got to handle that too. Right. And by the way, somewhere someone in the system became a killer because they had to do the job. But it's the ultimate.
Do you know what happened to your perpetrator?
Yeah, he died in prison.
Went to prison. Was he a priest?
No, he wasn't. He was the babysitter's stepfather or mother's boyfriend or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I know his name, and I know he died in a prison in New York State serving his third term for raping little boys. This is where that, when that comes up, keeping my thought, remembering the next thing I was going to say.
Well, we were talking about you abhor all rape and you don't want people murdered people.
Oh, and the death penalty is it's the ultimate rug to sweep everything under. Right. And I've had people say to me, look, I've already, I'm talking to a couple people and someone's thrown that out. They should all be killed. And they go, well, I don't think that's necessarily right. I think they should be segregated from society, from children, and studied very carefully. I wouldn't want to throw out the only petri dish with the AIDS virus in it, and I want to know where these, what the story is. I mean, is
there literally a brain anomaly that they have in common?
Who knows? Yeah, but in any case, I don't want to corroborate their MO either. I don't want an abusive thing. I just want them segregated and shown that you can be civilized. And right now, because of the recidivism. I hate to say it as the lefty that I am, but I would never, if you're offending, say, after the age of 21, I don't think there's any, I think that's what you're doing. But it gets, they're very audacious and they hide in broad daylight.
Yeah, that is the thing. And we don't believe the point, but like in the Woody Allen in Manhattan, in Deconstructing Harry, he's dating Juliette Lewis. There it is.
Yeah.
Surfacey question, but I know that you enjoyed this person's music, as did I a lot, and I always wondered where you came down on Pete Townsend.
Oh, well, I think he might have actually... because he wrote Tommy and stuff, I give him
Fiddle About and
I think that. Well, it's funny. I went to see Tommy right when one of the things that happened was I had just found out. I talked to someone else someone had disclosed what happened to me. It took me a long time to kind of put it together as an adult, but once it did, there was a whole bunch of corroborating information and whatever. But this person had. Anyway, someone who knew told someone else like 20 years earlier what had happened to me. And this person never told me, nor did no one told me. Right. So,
Thanks.
So the day after I find this out, I go with my buddy Al Giordano, who does Narco News. It's Christmas, and we're both orphans, kind of, and we and we didn't want to be in one of those situations where you get invited to people's house and they talk to you, the brother, about your size, and they come out and give you a fucking orange sweater. We'll get you something else anyway. I don't think.
C's candies.
Yeah.
Brock's licorice.
Yeah.
That's what we got my grandmother every single thing. Just get her some more Brock's licorice. She loves it.
Yeah.
So you go to see Tommy. That's what you do instead.
And I mean, it comes clear to me what that's all about. And it's the only opera I ever wept at. I was just sobbing. I was like,
of course,
ruined by it because it's like completely about just not about being like boxed into your own world and stuck. And then you finally break out. And you have a chance to have your life. I mean, that's what it's about. So, I mean, I'll give Townsend the benefit of the doubt, I guess. I mean,
well,
I'm not. I mean, I'm not. See, I'm not on the lynch. I'm not in the lynch mark.
No, I know you're not. I wrestle because his work. I like Woody Allen stuff.
Yeah.
Townsend's work so important to me.
Oh, I know. Me too.
And when that happened, I had a real but when I read
my
his
dreams aren't as empty as my conscience seems to be.
Exactly.
How does that appeal to an untreated victim of abuse?
Right. And when I read his book that just came out,
I haven't read it. You're still reading?
I do. I own
everything. That's not going to do you well with Generation Text.
No, they don't.
Putting on other shoe. It takes me 4 hours to figure out the abbreviations. Wait a minute. You have time to tell me you're putting on your other shoe, but you put it in this code that takes me 4 hours to figure out. This is really fucked. By the way, you were great. When you came in, I saw Dana when he started out, and he was, 7 years old. He's like, this elf comes in and does his rendition of what he's like, what he thinks you're supposed to do. And he's pretty fucking close, and he's 9 years old, and you go, oh, this guy, just get out of the way. He already knows this shit. And it's just like, watch out. There he goes. But that was, but it must have been something. I always wondered, like, what does this kid think walking into this den of lunatic stuff? Because I started this club called the Ding Ho in Cambridge, and it was.
I'll tell you, I had no problem. But it was also, and I was not. I've been drunk once in my life.
Yeah.
But I knew exactly. I felt completely isolated.
Yeah.
I was right at home.
Yeah. And I mean, no, everybody wasn't an alcoholic, but everybody was drinking.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Everybody was drinking. Yeah. But
you work up a powerful thirst doing the.
It's hard when you're up there. Those lights. Yeah. It's like the hot dog lights at the Chevron.
That's right.
The long story short.
By the way, I was telling Ennis yesterday. I was up there. He said, someone said to me, if you could say you're being executed, and what's your last meal? I go, I'm getting a gas station sandwich to in keeping with how bad and wrong it is to have capital punishment.
But I will say that in Townsend's book, he describes what he remembers.
Yeah.
And what he did.
Yeah.
And it does check out, and he does say, like, I told the police I was going to do this.
Right. Well, that's what
Then I did this.
Well, what I did. I mean, someone. If they came at me from all I kept saying was, and I said this to a prosecutor in Ohio who knew I was doing it. I said it to a federal attorney. I said it to a postal inspector. I go, if for some reason I get busted doing this work, I want to be at the press conference, because if I'm the one who's getting arrested when all this shit's going on, all I'm trying to do, I'm seeing this unbelievable. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
The numbers and
it was just shocking. I had one guy when I was online. He asked me. He thought I was a 12-year-old boy or something. He asked me to, quote, piss on my underpants, put them in a Ziploc bag, and mail them to him. to which I responded instantly because I was in total cop mode at the time. Yeah, sure, give me your address. And, and then that guy actually got taken in before anybody else because he had a bunch of previous offenses.
Uh-huh.
So, I just said, do me a favor, like handcuff him to the bars of the cell because, God, piss on your underpants, put them in a Ziploc bag and mail them to me. And that guy sent me so much child pornography. He started sending me child pornography. The next day, it's still coming. It just...
How does... And
it was great when the FBI came in to collect the evidence from me because they come in my office and there's this Guatemalan wall hanging with like 900 pins on it and 260 of them have red fists on them and stuff. And then he sees a Mark Twain bust and he's he was actually pretty and he's like trying to smear Mark Twain with me. It's like, look, this is a real strange bedfellows deal. Here are the fucking discs. Beat it. But when they left, after almost a year in those chat rooms, when they took those discs out of there and they said, don't go in there anymore. Okay. So when they left, I was kind of, that work was done.
Uh-huh.
I closed the door and just started sobbing. It was like I hadn't realized how... there's sort of PTSD from a year.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's exactly what I was going to say. And to deal with the unending amount and the countless people and the volume of it is when you think, and just these are all, every image is a ruined life
or potentially
damaged.
Ruined. Yeah, and I've heard from so many people after I testified and the story came out. And, you're talking a 50-year-old man calling you up, and he's weeping. He's going like, well, it was like I remember there was a lot of wood in the room, and what did you see this picture? They're that concerned, and I'm going like, look, man, these people, they don't see a person there. They do not see a person there. And you this shame you have is for being a crime victim. Crime victim, you're a victim of a crime. You got nothing to be ashamed of, even if they all they did was photograph the fact that you were victim of a horrible crime. And when they see it, they don't see you there. They don't see a human being there. When I see it, I see a human being there, and I can't do enough for them or love them enough or care enough. So please remember that when you think, if you think you're really, it's that bad. Like these people they just don't even make the connection that these are human beings that they're doing this to. And those who do are not going to think anything ill of
No, Well, it is.
But anyway, that was a long year. But I'm glad I helped raise some awareness. But now I sort of like some of this stuff where they just capture. But see, I think some of those shows where they capture the guy, that's the guy that's wandering through every porn room. Mm-hmm. And then wanders into the wrong one and gets set up, and they kind of blur, Yeah. And what it does is
you're talking about To Catch a Predator,
right?
And things
that
like
stuff. Yeah.
I find that show really disturbing, and there's a sport element to it that I find almost as disturbing. There was one...
Well, there's a rhythm to it. Everyone's waiting for that moment when the guy realizes he's fucked. It's right there.
But there was one where a guy had brought his son to play out back while he went upstairs.
Yeah.
Because he had his kid for the day. And I was just like, this... Nothing about this should then cut to a commercial...
Right.
For Mop and Glove.
Right.
Unless
you want to drink it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this should not be something that somebody is using to get advertising dollars.
Right.
That was the thing for me. It was just like, I don't...
Look,
not everything everything can be...
It's a very prevalent crime. They usually get away with it. There's more of it than we realize. And when you start looking into it, and if you come out publicly and disclose that you survived this stuff, and then you work in things, people come to you. My anecdotal information on this stuff is so vast now, over 20 years of people just calling me up, and You know what? And they always act like the abuse victims exaggerate what happens to them. I find just the opposite in most cases. They'll say, "Well, I read your story, and what happened to me wasn't nearly as bad." And then they tell you this heartbreaking story. And by the way, it doesn't matter if this abuse was. It's so long as the needle's in the red. Your social contract has basically been voided, and you've got to try and figure. This world has this element in it that nobody else seems to know about, that's horrible, and you just don't know. You just don't know where to go or what to do with it, and you don't know up from down, and then you take it from there. So there's a lot of people, but the anecdotal information I've gotten from people is just astonishing, and it is amazing how consistent that thing is, where they minimize what happened to them, and the next thing you know, this story comes out that's just crushing.
Right.
But they're just testing to see if they can say this stuff out loud because they know you're someone who has. But sometimes they test you and they're not ready to do something about it, and they just want you to jump into the pit with them. My job is to try to say, look, I know you're wallowing in your own shit in that pit, and it's warm and it feels good. This actually, my friend Alana Lawrence taught me that. But, we're going to get you up and we're going to spray you off with this hose. And it's going to seem cold and shocking, but then you're going to go in and take a shower, and you're going to put on clean clothes, and you're not going to believe how much better you feel to just not be wallowing in that stuff anymore. Stop trying to find your way back there. What you have to do is to try to find your way out of it. And, but unfortunately, some people are pretty comfortable, and some people are also very comfortable. They know how to lose.
There are people who need to be rescued.
Yeah.
But getting out of the ocean and into the boat requires they change.
Yeah.
And they'd rather people just keep trying to rescue them.
Yeah. So, there's another, I've had to learn to offer people what I can. And if you get a response, then we can go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But if you don't, you just say, well, look, we've had a couple of talks and you haven't done what I asked. So now we're not going to talk anymore, because I've learned this thing over the years, and that is sometimes you can't get people to listen to you until you stop talking. And when they now suddenly, well, why doesn't Barry talk to me anymore? I don't know why. What was he saying? Oh, I guess I didn't do that. You hope that happens, and it has happened in a few cases anyway. But mostly there's enough people who are willing. The improvement you can feel to just divest, to just dump that stuff, to just say it out loud and get some sympathy that you deserve.
Yeah, and that brings us back to the Dylan Farrow thing. Is just like, you can't carry that with you.
She's going through it and not around it.
Yeah.
So good for her. It will help her in the long run, but this is a hellacious challenge because of all these other factors. And it's inconvenient for people to know that this person they thought of as heroically, may well have done these horrific things.
Yeah.
And it's a conflict, and it's not convenient. And so, it's easier to just go, she's nuts, her mother's nuts, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And ignore he did marry, yeah.
My girlfriend sent me to the grocery store to get food for dinner. I went to get chicken and some white wine, and they had mangoes on sale, and mangoes were a new fruit in Texas at the time.
This is in Texas. You are a Jewish Texan.
Jewish Texan, like Jack Ruby of the Kennedy thing. I had to hide out forever after that. A Jew with a gun who ran a strip club. It's terrible. I'm in the store, and I'm picking out this mangoes, and I don't know how to tell if they're ripe or not. And this guy comes up to me and he says, "I see you have mangoes, the most exotic of fruits." So I immediately think he's nuts.
Yeah.
Maybe
an angel.
And I reach into the grocery cart to give him a mango, and maybe he'll go away. And from my new angle, I see that he has like a .45 caliber gun behind his back. And I know in that second, I'm dead.
Right.
I'm dead. And I come up with the mango, and he sees the sudden kind of lifelessness in my eyes, and he knows I know. And he says, "I don't know why I picked you today. I don't know why. I have contracted brucellosis, a cattle disease in South America that leads to suicide or homicide. And I'm there thinking, just my luck, today it had to be homicide. I mean, another roll of the dice, it could have been suicide. Right. He whirls the gun around, puts it in my forehead like this, and I had truth. I had the most remarkable thought. I thought of Chad Everett. And Chad Everett was a big star on Medical Center at the time. Very popular show. And I remember on Medical Center, they had a situation with hostage. And Chad Everett on Medical Center said, you have to keep the gunman talking. Right. Well, I didn't know how to do that. But I knew how to talk. So I began constructing this fabulous, completely lie based on my favorite monologues from Medical Center. Because in Medical Center, they had a lot of father-son things. And I said, you remind me of my father. My father always wanted me to be a doctor, but I wasn't good enough or smart enough. Why can't two people just sit down at a kitchen table and say, Dad, I love you, son, I love you, but I can always see the disrespect. Whenever we look at each other, all we do is fight. And I'm talking a million, and the truth of the matter is, while I'm talking 1,000,000 miles an hour, talking to this guy, the store is deserted. I'm looking out the big front window of the store, and I see SWAT team guys running back and forth. Under the window, I hear a helicopter coming down from above. Then I see an ambulance pull into the parking lot, open the doors, and throw out a body bag and a gurney. And I'm thinking, okay, one of them's for him, one of them's for me. Which is going to be which? And I'm talking for probably, I'm guessing, about 45 minutes. And after 45 minutes...
Really? And he just hung in that whole time?
The gun just... He's looking at me like, a snake charmer. Just the fact that I was just this nonstop stream of talking. He has the gun in my forehead, and finally I realize I have nothing more to say. Oh my God. And then I hear a voice in my ear saying, Stephen, you need to do something different now. You need to do something different. And I couldn't think of what to do. The only thing I could think to do was to invite the guy over for dinner. So he's got the gun in my head, and I said, listen, I don't know what you're doing later. I don't know about you, but we're getting a lot worked out. I'm getting a lot of stuff about my dad worked out. I have to get this on the grill. Why don't you just come on home with me? You can meet my girlfriend, Beth. We could talk a little bit more, have a little wine. And then in a scene that would never be in a movie, I said, do you have a pen on you? He's got the gun here. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a pen, and hands me the pen. I grabbed the mango, the brown bag of the mango, and I was so tired and I was so scared. For the life of me, I couldn't think of a phony address. So I give him my real address. Here it is. Come on over. Give him that. There's your pen back. Thank you. I've got to go now. And one of the scariest moments of the whole thing is I had to get past him because he's in front of me with the gun in my head. So I pushed the cart past him, and I felt the gun go in the back of my head, and the voice came back into my ear, and it said, don't turn around, don't turn around, just keep walking, don't turn around. And so I keep walking, and at the corner, there's Pepsi-Colas stacked up, and the voice came back and said, if you make it to the Pepsi-Colas, you could run. If you make it to the Pepsis, you can live. And I'm going, and I'm about to turn at the Pepsis, and that's when I didn't have to run. Like while I was talking, covered by the noise of my Medical Center monologues, the SWAT team had come in the back of the store, covered by my noise, down adjacent aisles and had their guns pointed at us through the food. And as soon as I rounded the Pepsis, the SWAT team jumped over the food and had my potential dinner guest hogtied in about 8 seconds. And I'm wandering around the deserted store, and I go up to the empty checkout counter, and I just wait. policeman taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, pal, you could just go."
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Produced by Jeff Fox. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Hey, if you like the show, why don't you drop us a line at show@danagould.com. Tom Kenny speaking.
I once felt bad because I had no podcast. And then I met a man who had no blog.